Chapter 9:11. He passed through the bottomless abyss whirlpool in just an instant. When Zhong Shou broke out from the chaos of space, he saw thousands of white shadows wrapping around him. Behind them was a wave of cold power that could freeze everything as well as claw light. Spider silk. Zhong Shou thought about it and understood what was going on. Since there were mutated beasts hiding at the entrance, then how could the exit be so calm? When he thought about it, the 79 star Dao seeds spread out in all directions. His body flashed and he disappeared from the spot, causing the sticky spider silk to hit the air. The nameless sword also exploded out at that moment. The blazing white sky burning flame covered the sword body. All of a sudden, thousands of brilliant sword shadows rose up and tore the space apart, almost shattering it into pieces. Along with a few cries, the few mutated beasts all retreated. The beasts on the fourth layer were much stronger than those on the previous layer. They took a few swords head-on and were only lightly injured. Zhong Shou didn't care, doing it in a rush. The sword energy split and there was no power at all. The seemingly vast and majestic sword light was just used to threaten. As expected, the 20-odd strange beasts that were pouncing over all paused for a moment and slowed down their speed. However, that violent killing intent still locked onto him tightly. However, the millions of sword shadows around Zhong Shou surged up. It was endless and endless, its aura becoming more and more majestic. It vaguely formed a circle of swords, causing the strange beasts that were charging over to either reveal a look of fear or retreat without any results. Amidst the chaos, a few tiny silvery white shadows shuttled through the monstrous sword light. It ignored space and pretty much shattered the concept of time and the laws of the grand path. The silver-white flying knife arrived in an instant. A huge force burst forth from the saber and directly pierced through the body of a mutated spirit beast. Blood flew everywhere, following which several more blood threads exploded out. Those few green-white flying knives pierced through the bodies of those few mutated beasts. Then, a large amount of blood mist exploded, and the remaining corpses of the mutated beasts were all burned. It was the sky burning true words that took away the last bit of life from those few natural variants. On the other hand, Hanshi's body flashed and snatched 3 more beast pellet. Then, just as Zhong Shou flashed once more, it returned into his sleeve. After killing the few that were the fastest, Zhong Shou's 79 star Dao seeds were successfully spread out 10 million miles. Dozens of teleportations, and in just a dozen breaths, he moved 10,000 miles and totally broke away from those beasts that weren't willing to stop. Actually, with his ability, it wasn't that he couldn't kill them all. There were indeed quite a few immortal rank beasts in there, but for him, it would only take a few dozen breaths to deal with them. However, after all, he snuck into this world, and he had to be careful. He wasn't willing to waste time and didn't want to make too much of a commotion and alert the Liu family prison guards. This was why before he left, Zhong Shou only attacked those few beasts that might be bothering him or that Hanshi might be useful to. This Saint Fire Ant Queen was really lucky. Last time it swallowed the shark snake's Niden and merged with large amounts of wish power that Zhong Shou purified. Its strength had greatly increased. Now that it merged with the Nadens of a few more mutated beasts, who knows how much its source would be strengthened. The people of this world are restricted by spiritual restrictions. Most of the 5 element laws have been removed. Only these natural variants aren't affected by the restrictions. That's right. These things are the manifestation of one of the laws of heaven and earth. How can their connection with the foundations of the world be affected by this death jail formation? However, the laws that these mutated beasts grasped are a little too weak. Is it because there are too many of them, or is there another reason? There is also this sky-burning true flame. In this death jail, power is terrifyingly strong and pretty much counters all laws. It seems like this Liu family death jail isn't as simple as just a place of punishment. This was what Zhong Shou personally experienced. Just now, when he used the sky-burning flame to kill those few beasts, it was really easy. The Lu family people wanted to go up against those natural variants and survive in this death jail. The best way was to squeeze out every bit of potential in their bloodline to raise the quality of the sky-burning true flame. All of a sudden, numerous questions rose up in his mind. Zhong Shou didn't come here for that. After thinking about it, he was too lazy to bother. Only at this moment did he start to size up this world. Following which he was slightly startled, only to see that there were 6 suns in the sky. The blazing and violent sunlight shone down, causing this place to be like a furnace. All he could see was yellow sand. The ground was cracked and there was pretty much no vegetation. What was even more frightening was that light. It was like threads of energy needles shooting down. Even Zhong Shou's body-protecting energy couldn't block it. When it stabbed into his skin, it was like millions of steel needles drilling into his body. Zhong Shou was deep in thought as he looked at his hand, only to see that there was a sizzling sound coming from his skin. His body was being burned and melted. His physical body was strong and at this moment, he was able to go up against all intermediate magical treasures without being injured. However, under the shine of these millions of light beams, he still couldn't take it. He couldn't help but think that if he was already like that, then what about the others? He turned around and looked at Lu Wubbing. As expected, the latter's situation was even more tragic. Luckily, he was peak late celestial realm and after borrowing his Book of Aeon, he learned a lot. He could barely hold on and didn't end up like what Zhong Shou imagined. This world is known as the Light Needle Death Jail. Below Heaven Realm, no one can last for more than 10 days. However, every 10 days this world will have rain, allowing people to take a breather. He waved his sleeves and opened up the ground. One could see numerous small snake shadows twisting and struggling in the dirt. This is the earth-seeking ant snake. It can't see the light and can't see the wind. There are billions of them in this world and they are spread all over the ground. The people in this jail all eat these snakes. Zhong Shou felt a chill down his spine. These earth-seeking ant snakes were the food of the sinners in this death jail. Wasn't it to prevent the Lu family sinners from hiding underground when the sun was at its brightest? Clenching his fists, Zhong Shou's fingernails dug deep into his flesh. Blood seeped down from the corner of his lips, and he didn't even notice it. So, Zhong Shou's mother lived in such a cruel hell for 20 years? Taking in a deep breath, Zhong Shou slowly calmed himself down. At this moment, there was no point in being anxious or hating. He could only find his mother as soon as possible. Then, what is the 8th layer like? Based on what Lu Wubbing said, Lu Hanyan was locked up in the 8th layer. Chapter 9:12. Ruler, you are making things difficult for me. Lu Wubbing shook his head, his tone was filled with self-mockery. I have only been to the 2nd to 7th layers in this jail. He was most familiar with these few levels, below the 7th level. I have never been there and have never heard of it. The Lu family has always been secretive about the death jail. Not only are outsiders unable to find out the details, even the people in the family don't know what is going on. Zhong Shou was slightly disappointed. His eyes filled with shock as he sized up Lu Wubbing. Listening to his words, it seemed like this person had personally experienced the Light Needle Death Jail and Thousand Knife Death Jail when he was young. Before this, he thought that it was a miracle that Lu Wubbing didn't lose his mind in the jail. At this moment, he was thinking about how this person was actually able to get out safely and stand in front of him. He always thought that in terms of mental fortitude, no one in the world was stronger than him. Now, it seemed like that might not be the case. Sighing, Zhong Shou's spiritual sense locked onto the other star Dao seed that was spread out thousands of miles away. However, just as he had the thought of teleporting, he felt a huge pain in his eyes. It affected his nerves and instantly spread to his entire brain. All the vital energy in his body flowed in reverse and into his eyes. The burning feeling in his bone marrow rose up once more. The blood spirit energy that had just dissipated 2 hours ago started to surge once again. In his eyes, the door that had disappeared appeared once more. It was as if there were countless voices shouting in his ears. Zhong Shou's expression was vicious as he tried his best to hold on. He swept his spiritual sense across his body to search for any suspicious areas. This time, he was finally able to deduce the reason for the changes. It is actually Hanshi. At this moment, the Saint Fire Ant Queen was curled up into a ball in his sleeves. It wasn't like a cocoon like before, instead, its body was wrapped up in thin silver threads. It seemed like it was cleaning and refining the few mutated beast pellets that flew over. The few spirit beasts that Hanshi chose to devour this time were all related to fire and light. A total of 8 strange beast cores, either silver white or fiery red, were enveloped by the 6 pairs of light wings. All of them shone brightly with ferocious flame power. Hanshi itself was wrapped in silver flames and was in a deep sleep. At this moment, waves of heterogeneous origin energy were being channeled through the symbiotic formation between the man and beast. What followed was countless mysterious information that could only be understood but could not be described in words. It was also this unique origin power that kept the blood origin in his bone marrow boiling and pouring into his eyes. Zhong Shou found it strange. This time it was because of Hanshi. Then what was the reason for the previous time? When it first acted up, Hanshi didn't swallow any beast pellet. At that time, what was the trigger? This time, it was different from the helplessness he felt towards the door. At this moment, on the seemingly indestructible barrier, under the continuous impact of his chi and blood, a thin, almost invisible crack actually appeared. He only felt numerous red flames flowing out from the crack. It caused his eyes to be about to burn, and the pain was unbearable. It was like there was something that was deeply imprinted into the depths of his soul ocean at this moment. However, when he looked closely, he didn't gain anything. There are other legends within the 9 Extreme Death Jail. The 9 Extreme Death Jail isn't the true death jail. There is another exit below the 9th layer. As long as one can charge to the deepest part of the jail, one can leave. Therefore, 90% of the sinners of my Lu family who are sent to this prison will think of all sorts of ways to move to the higher levels, hoping that they can lessen their pain. There are also many who will go all out to charge to the bottom of the death jail. My parents were the same, unfortunately, they failed. Only when he said this did Lu Wubbing notice that Zhong Shou's situation was a little uneasy. His body actually couldn't help but tremble slightly. His face was ashen white, devoid of blood. Before this, he only thought that Zhong Shou was angry because of what happened to his mother. Only now did he notice that the situation wasn't right. Zhong Shou seemed like he was enduring intense pain. However, this was just the light needle death jail, so why did he have to go through so much pain? The pain of the light needle burning his body was just a small matter to Zhong Shou, who had gone through the marrow-burning blood spirit curse, and wasn't worth mentioning. Did the effects of the blood spirit curse still not fade? That shouldn't be. Lu Wubbing's eyes were filled with a weird and worried expression as he frowned slightly. Ruler, is there something wrong? Why don't you rest for a while? Before his words landed, Zhong Shou's voice forcefully interrupted him. I am fine. Taking in a deep breath, Zhong Shou forcefully suppressed the pain. Luckily, as time went on, the weird energy that Hanshi injected into him was slowly weakening. Although the marrow blood essence was still burning, it wasn't as intense as before. It was slowly decreasing to a level that Zhong Shou could take. What was regretful was that the door wasn't able to be opened. Even the crack from before was being repaired. At this point, Zhong Shou himself started to feel curious about the barrier in his eyes. He wanted to know what was behind the door and what kind of bloodline mutation could cause Zhong Shou such pain. It should be the ripples of the marrow-burning blood spirit curse. It is okay. The spiritual energy in this world is thin and weak. Cultivating here will just consume true qi. The moment he said this, Zhong Shou expressionlessly looked at Lu Wubbing. Speaking of which, the origin of the blood spirit curse was this person. However, this person was actually willing to sacrifice dozens of his own race's disciples just to chase after him. However, thinking about Lu Wubbing's life experiences, it wasn't surprising. In his heart, he probably didn't treat those who had the same bloodline as his own race. Maybe he didn't even have the concept of race. The feeling in his heart was really complicated. Originally, he was prepared to both use and defend against Lu Wubbing. This person was really smart, but his personality was too vicious and he couldn't be at ease. However, looking at it now, he couldn't blame this person for the marrow-burning blood spirit curse. At this moment, Lu Wubbing was slightly startled. He stared right into Zhong Shou's eyes, only to see a few extremely mysterious fire-colored runes appear in his eyes. It looked no different from normal talismans. However, just looking at one another, Lu Wubbing felt like the blood in his body was burning on its own. His mind and soul ocean were like huge waves. Lu family world burning blood eyes? The moment such a thought flashed in his mind, Lu Wubbing frowned and shook his head. It didn't seem like it, however. Before he was able to think about it, Zhong Shou wrapped him up with a streak of spiritual energy. Under that blazing red sun, it brought him through the void to search for the entrance to the fifth layer. Chapter 9:13. There were clearly fewer sinners in the fourth level of the Light Needle Death prison than the third level. The spiritual energy was thin, but the area was hundreds of times larger. Zhong Shou spent a full 4 days here before he found the entrance to the fifth layer. This place was different from the other 2 death jails. It was a world wrapped in flames. There was lava all around, and the breath one exhaled was filled with fire energy. Only a few rare places could allow living beings to survive. Based on what Lu Wubbing said, this place was called the Molten Death Jail. This layer was where the Lu family punished celestial realm and above criminals. It wasn't easy to survive in this jail. Every day at noon, they would be subjected to a forbidden technique similar to the marrow-burning blood spirit curse. However, the marrow-burning blood spirit curse used the life energy and true essence of other Lu family people as fuel. What this world burned was the marrow and blood essence of the people in this jail. When Zhong Shou entered the fifth layer, it was coincidentally 11 p.m. when the forbidden technique activated. He was totally unable to defend against it, and it exploded out in his body. In an instant, vital energy surged and charged into his eyes. This time it didn't activate the sky-burning blood in his body. Within his soul ocean, the 9-tailed sky fox, lightning phoenix, and water Qilin marks were all activated. All of his bloodline power was gathered in his eyes. An even bigger crack appeared on the door that was flickering in and out of existence. More red flames surged and imprinted into his soul ocean. It caused Zhong Shou's face to turn ashen white. If it wasn't for his strong will, he would have fainted on the spot. Luckily, the few mutated beast pellets that Hanshi snatched weren't totally refined and were still in deep sleep. When they charged at the entrance to the fifth layer, the few that Zhong Shou snatched were still in his heaven and earth bag. The true essence that Hanshi injected into him was already reduced to 10% of the initial amount. This was why Zhong Shou was able to barely hold on. This time he could clearly sense it. It was true that something had flowed into his soul with the flow of flames, and was imprinted in his soul essence. However, there were some scattered patterns that used the Tao word in his soul ocean as the source to seep into the crack. Zhong Shou gritted his teeth and held on for a full 2 hours before the forbidden technique dissipated. At this moment, Zhong Shou was drenched in sweat and his body was exhausted and weak. However, there were more questions in his heart. How did this happen? I thought that it was just a change in the sky burning blood, but it seems like it isn't just that. This time, the other 3 bloodline powers in his body was mixed in. Hanshi's use of it was totally negligible. This made him confused and he couldn't figure out the reason. Could it be a bloodline advancement? But in this world, how can there be someone who can raise their bloodline like me? What is behind this barrier in my eyes? Thousands of questions surged out in his mind, but Zhong Shou didn't have an answer to them. At this moment, his body was pretty much exhausted. Helpless, he could only bring Lu Wubing and teleport a few times to choose a place where the spiritual veins gathered to rest. Luckily, the spiritual energy in this world was abundant and much stronger than the light needle death jail. Along with the help of medicine, in just 30 minutes, Zhong Shou was fully recovered. However, when he thought about how in just a few hours, he could experience it once more, this kind of vital energy flow felt like his entire body was breaking apart. Zhong Shou's head couldn't help but feel numb. No matter how strong his heart was, he felt powerless at this moment. More importantly, it wasn't this pain. If I face those mutated spiritual beasts and natural variants, what should I do when they act up? Although I don't fear them, I will be distracted. The vital energy flow will be harder to control and my combat strength will be reduced by 30%. Thinking about it for a moment, Zhong Shou decisively cast out a few seals. In just a moment, a talisman was hidden in the depths of his eyes. At the crucial moment, the forbidden technique could sever the connection between his eyes and his physical body's origin soul at any time. The vital energy flow in his body was due to the mutation of his bloodline. Any technique wouldn't work and instead, it might cause unforeseen consequences. Zhong Shou had no idea. All he could think about was to cut off this pain at a specific time. Although there might be problems, he couldn't care about so much. In the next instance, he raised up the illusionary heart mirror and placed it behind his head. His spiritual sense was connected. Under the illumination of the green light, nothing could hide. The pain was cut off, which meant that his vision had to be cut off too. When experts fought, they relied on their spiritual sense. However, that didn't mean that vision wasn't important. Using the illusionary heart mirror to replace his eyes was what he needed. However, when he summoned the illusionary heart mirror, Zhong Shou was slightly startled. Under the green light of the illusionary heart mirror, there was pretty much no dead angle. Zhong Shou's entire body was reflected in the mirror. However, at this moment, not only did a few mysterious runes appear in his eyes, but there was also an abnormal blood color. What is the reason for this? Just as Zhong Shou was thinking about it, the blood runes disappeared along with the pain. Lu Wubing, who was sitting quietly at the side, also sensed something. He was in deep thought. Zhong Shou didn't think much and directly asked, "Do you know the reason for this?" This person's expression wasn't filled with doubt but deep in thought. He definitely knew something. "I don't know." Lu Wubing directly shook his head and asked, "Ruler is one of the few direct bloodlines of our Lu family. I think there should be the mark of the world-burning blood eye in your legacy?" World-burning blood eye? There was an explosion in Zhong Shou's soul ocean. A memory that had been buried deep in his mind suddenly surged out. World-burning blood eye, there really was such a memory in his bloodline legacy. However, Zhong Shou didn't pay much attention to the sky-burning Lu family matters. As for the bloodline inheritances of the Lu family, he only chose those great Tao insights that were beneficial to him and merged them into his body. As for the other memories, he rarely came into contact with them. At this moment, Lu Wubing reminded him, and this time it was dug out from the deep memories. It doesn't seem like it. The world-burning blood eye was one of the top bloodline abilities of the sky-burning Lu family. The eye was blood-colored and had the ability to burn the world. However, in the records of the Lu family, out of the 20-odd people who had the world-burning blood eye, only one was born with it. His father was End Realm and his mother was Saint Realm. However, because he couldn't take the power of the blood eye, he died after leaving behind a few children. The other three relied on special heaven-grade spiritual treasures to form the world-burning blood eye. Apart from these 4 people, the rest of the people had all reached the Saint Realm. They were able to greatly refine their bloodline power to form it. There was no one in the Lu family who was able to use their own strength to reach the Saint Realm. None of the situations were similar to his, and the characteristics recorded were totally different. Recently, Zhong Shou didn't use any treasures or spiritual items. Chapter 9:14. Not only did he not consume any spiritual medicine, but his sky-burning blood was also far from reaching its peak level. Naturally, he definitely wouldn't be able to give birth to this world-burning blood eye ability. In his memory, the experts of the Lu family who had the world-burning blood eye were naturally successful. Naturally, they grasped it. How was it as tough as he was now and was being tortured? Furthermore, this time around, several of the bloodlines in his body were also implicated. His bloodline power was in a mess, and the situation was getting further and further away from the world-burning blood eye in his memory. This was what I guessed before. I thought that if ruler really had the world-burning blood eye, then you would be able to enter and exit the 9 extreme death jail as you wish. Then, I thought about it and realized that it wasn't. However, there are some similarities within. Lu Wubing shook his head and wore an iron mask on his face. Along with the armor, it caused his aura to become more and more indiscernible. Looking at ruler's situation, there are changes in your eyes that are related to your bloodline. I heard that the 9-tailed sky fox bloodline god beast has the illusionary eye ability. Ruler's bloodlines are mixed and it caused a change. It is tough to know the reason why. As for what changes there will be in the future, I can't predict it. However, my Lu family legacy has some techniques that are related to the world-burning blood eye. Maybe they will help ruler. Zhong Shou's brow rose up. Lu Wubing's words were similar to what he had guessed. Then, he carefully searched through his memories, and his expression relaxed. He really did find a few secret techniques. They were the eye-protecting and eye-nurturing techniques. Any eye-type ability would have a huge burden on the physical body of the eyes. Those crystal beasts and god beasts were still okay, so human race cultivators needed to nourish and train their eyes to reach a certain level before they could use it. As for the eye protection technique, it was to prevent the eyes from suffering too much damage when using the divine ability. These techniques didn't solve the problem, but the latter could reduce his pain when the vital energy flowed back and struck the barrier. The eye-nurturing technique could be used now. The repeated strikes had caused his eyes to be filled with injuries and his meridians to be in chaos. He also felt fortunate. Be it human cultivators or crystal beasts, their weakest point was their eyes. This was the hardest place for cultivators to temper their physical bodies. Zhong Shou used the infinite beginning and end wish power to strengthen his body. His entire body was evenly distributed. However, he managed to survive these few attacks without any mishap. If it were an ordinary cultivator, their eyes would have exploded long ago. Even if he used the rebirth technique to repair it, it would still be extremely fragile. The Lu family's world-burning blood eyes and the 9-tailed sky fox clan's illusory pupil divine ability. He couldn't remember the Qilin, but the ancient Thunder Luan seemed to have an eye-type divine ability. He just couldn't remember its name. Could it be that several bloodlines were mixed and they all had the same eye-type divine ability, which caused the mutation? Just as Zhong Shou was thinking about it, he felt his sleeves move. Hanshi had woken up. He flew out from his sleeves and in a flash, he was 10,000 feet high in the air. It was also at this moment that the world that was filled with blazing lava suddenly dimmed. Then, a dozen or so streaks of black light attacked from all directions. Within this world, numerous vengeful energies gathered over. Zhong Shou took a look and knew that this was Hanshi's celestial realm tribulation. He wasn't surprised that after swallowing the shark-snake-beast pellet and merging with the wish power of Tsongling world, Hanshi was already half a foot into the celestial realm. At this moment, it had swallowed a few of its own kind. Using this as a chance, it was indeed time for it to step into the celestial realm. Following behind Hanshi were 36 Saint Fire Soldier Ant. They surrounded below, forming a formation. These soldier ants were similar to Hanshi's children and even its clone. At this moment, they were naturally facing the tribulation. The black light slashed over, but Hanshi slashed out with a few blades without any effort. It easily shattered the tribulation power into numerous pieces. There was also the power of gathering flames. All the flames in this 3,000-mile world were gathering towards his body. It was really bright and vast, like a sun hanging in the air. It caused the black light to be unable to get close to it. At this moment, little gold flew out from his sleeves, turning into a small blood sword monster lord and standing on Zhong Shou's shoulder. It had a complicated expression as it looked into the air. A moment later, when the tribulation power dissipated, it curled its lips in disdain and headed back into Zhong Shou's sleeves. Zhong Shou found it amusing. He knew that this fellow wanted to win. This was a good thing. Zhong Shou let it be and didn't bother about it. His eyes were filled with a weird expression. Hanshi being able to easily deal with the tribulation was within his expectations. Heaven and earth variants could go up against God Beast. After entering the 9 extreme death jail, it swallowed its own kind and made up for its lack of ability legacies. At this moment, the tribulation power was less than 10% of his celestial realm tribulation. It would be weird if it couldn't handle it. What made him feel weird was how Hanshi dealt with the vengeful energy that gathered over. It was actually going all out to block it out of its body. However, it wasn't rejecting it. It was suppressing, controlling, and even purifying it before carefully merging it into its body. In his heart, Zhong Shou was both happy and emotional. It knew how to control the vengeful energy so quickly. It was born, but it wasn't controlled by it. Hanshi had obviously broken away from its instincts and had its own nature. The chances of it attacking its master had dropped to an extremely low level. Who knows if it was because of Hanshi's talent or because he taught it well. However, for Hanshi to be able to awaken and advance at this time was a great thing. Along with Hanshi starting to form its pellet, the other Saint Fire Silver ants started to form cocoons in the air. He knew that there wouldn't be any more accidents. However, it still needed some time for Hanshi to form its pellet. Zhong Shou decided to close his eyes and enter a meditative state. This wait lasted for a full day. The forbidden technique of this world also activated 3 times in a row. As expected, the vital energy flowed backwards. However, this time he tried those few secret techniques in the Liu family bloodline legacy. As expected, it was much better. Even the marrow-burning blood spirit curse power was being suppressed. Although the pain was intense, he could bear with it. After watching for 40 hours, Hanshi finally formed a beast pellet. It slowly landed on his shoulder, its 6 pairs of silver wings spreading out. Within the tassel-like glow, there were a few more threads of golden color. Its form didn't change, and it looked like a human. However, Zhong Shou could feel that the little person on his shoulder had terrifying power in its body. Zhong Shou laughed and threw the few mutated beast pills he had snatched over to him. Hanshi's eyes moved slightly. It was really picky as it chose 2 from within. With a flap of his silver wings, he hid it within his own silver wings. As for the rest, in Hanshi's soul, there was a sense of resistance. Chapter 9:15. Zhong Shou couldn't help but feel shocked. The few mutated beasts he chose should be beneficial to Hanshi. However, this Saint Fire Ant Queen didn't appreciate it. In the next instance, Hanshi's spiritual sense spread over. A look of understanding appeared in Zhong Shou's eyes. As expected, if it can continue to swallow and evolve, wouldn't these heaven and earth variants be invincible? Every time a mutated beast advanced, the number of laws it could swallow and refine was limited. At this moment, although Hanshi still had a lot left, it was still really precious. It wasn't willing to easily merge with it. The monster pellets he took were beneficial to it, but it couldn't cause Hanshi's strength to change. Naturally, it didn't care about them. This Saint Fire Ant Queen was really smart and wasn't greedy. He would only start with the laws of light and fire. It merged all sorts of laws into it. At this moment it had strengthened these two Daos to the extreme. With Zhong Shou's observation, those natural variants he saw in the 9 extreme death jail, there really wasn't one that could compare to it. Lu Wubing and Lin Xuanshuang both praised this Ant Queen. Even amongst its kind, it was a king. It seemed like it wasn't just referring to the abilities it grasped as well as its ability to breed soldier ant. As expected, even if it is born from heaven and earth, it can't break away from the Tao of balance. However, Senior Brother Han once said that if Shi Zi's master had a natural variant, he wouldn't have fallen. These words shouldn't only be able to help Master grasp those laws. Zhong Shou was thinking about this, only to see that Hanshi didn't toss away those few beast pellets. Instead, she directly waved her silver wings and gave the nadens to the earliest few soldier ants under her. Zhong Shou's head instantly felt numb. Did the soldier ants that Hanshi split off have the ability of a complete mutated beast? A moment later, Zhong Shou heaved a sigh of relief. He felt both relaxed and regretful. These few soldier ants were obviously unable to fully merge with these beast pellet. Looking at the situation, just one celestial-grade beast pellet contained heaven and earth laws, and it was already too much for them. It would be impossible for him to fuse any more. However, even then, it was enough to increase their combat strength. Zhong Shou's heart felt a chill. He took a deep look at these soldier ants before retracting his gaze. After leaving this temporary resting place, Zhong Shou continued to travel through the air. This time he didn't use his spiritual sense to search around. Instead, he ordered the soldier ants under Hanshi to spread out, covering the ground and the sky. After Hanshi entered the realm, its spiritual senses soul realm. In this world where flames covered sky's strength, it wasn't restricted. STTS shows spiritual change of the Saint Fire Show. Relying on these Saint Fire crystal ants, the million miles of land in the 5th layer wasn't much. In just 4 hours, Zhong Shou found one of the 4 entrances to the 6th layer that Lu Wubing mentioned. It was also a deep abyss, however. There weren't any mutated spiritual beasts. Instead, there were hundreds of high platforms. On each platform there was a person. Some were muscular, some were enchanting women, some were thin and small. Dozens of them didn't look like humans. They were alien races that Zhong Shou had never seen before. However, without exception, they were all tightly bound by dozens of chains as thick as a child's arm. They pierced through their muscles and collarbones, such that their bodies couldn't be more than 100 miles away from the high platforms. Not far away there was a tall tower. With the spiritual formation protecting it, Zhong Shou had no way to know what was going on within. Looking forward, Zhong Shou was in deep thought. Lu Wubing was the first to speak. These are the people that the Lu family captured when they conquered the outer regions. This 9 extreme death jail doesn't only lock up the criminals of the family, there are also many captives. Are these people all stained with the blood of our Lu family disciples? They are locked up here, and only by killing more than 10 people who try to cross the world can the chains be released, and they can regain their freedom. Inside the tower were the guards of the Lu clan in the prison. Lu family rules are that, if the guards die, these people will be killed for not doing their job well. He asked curiously, "Ruler, are you curious why no one is guarding the first 5 layers where the punishments are lighter?" However, the sky-burning Lu family arranged the entrance to the 6th layer like that? Zhong Shou nodded slightly. This was something that he didn't understand. The first layer of the 9 extreme death jail was the safest world in the death region. Although there were restrictions, compared to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th layers, they were like nothing. He really didn't understand why there were only some mutated beasts in these few layers. However, it was the entrance to the 6th layer. Why did the Lu family spend so much effort to block it? At a glance, one could see that these 100 people were all immortal realm cultivators. Although they weren't in their best states and were tortured by the restrictions of the molten death jail, their bodies were weak. However, each of them gave off a fierce aura, definitely not what the spiritual beasts in the first few layers could compare to. The Liu family actually has a time limit to their sentences. However, the moment they leave the death jail, there is no chance for them to escape. As such, the Liu family didn't stop them from migrating. Liu Wubbing hesitated slightly. As for this place, I don't know the reason. However, because of this, many people believe that there is an exit in the 9th layer. There has to be an exit, or maybe the Liu family is hiding some huge secret in the 9th layer. Before Liu Wubbing finished, Zhong Shou shook his head. He had already given up on understanding the details of this place. He directly teleported and used a star Dao seed to appear above the abyss. The 100 celestial realm cultivators who were trapped were first stunned and then instantly came to their senses. Everyone's eyes were filled with fanatical joy. Amidst the clanging of countless chains, dozens of figures rose into the air one after another. Those spirit masters directly cast spells, gathering fire into flames and spreading over. Zhong Shou didn't charge into the abyss. Instead, he looked at the high platform in the distance. At this layer, the chances of him covering his tracks when he passed through the world barrier was really small. Even if he killed all the people here, he would still alert the world protector venerables of the Liu family. This was why at this moment, Zhong Shou didn't have any thoughts of holding back. If he wanted to safely step into the 6th layer of the death jail, the only way was to use lightning speed to solve this problem as quickly as possible. This was why the moment he attacked, Zhong Shou went all out. When the sword light rose up, 6 silver flying knives sped out without a trace. They flashed in the air and pierced through the heads of the 6 celestial realm spirit masters. Chapter 9:16. The 6-god defensive knife technique could only nurture 6 true 6-god flying knife. Power had the most. However, in Zhong Shou's bag, there were still dozens of flying knives that he had nurtured using his soul. These celestial realm cultivators who were locked up here weren't worth him using the true 6-god knife. The knife flashed and the brains of the 6 celestial realm spirit masters were pierced. At this moment, the nameless sword light suddenly shrunk and condensed, retracting to within 100 feet of Zhong Shou. One origin in. Within 100 feet is my unbreakable sword domain. The sword light slashed out, pretty much soundlessly. However, where the light passed, everything that struck over was slashed and forced back by the sword. Every time there was a clanking sound, every time there was a collision, the sword stored up strength, making it even more majestic and strong. When the heaven-swallowing energy conversion technique accumulated to the extreme, Zhong Shou's sword light changed once more. One origin yang. Where the sword pointed, no one could block it. Millions of sword shadows were like the Milky Way rolling backwards, charging forwards. Layers upon layers of sword light instantly drowned out everything. The faces of the immortal rank cultivators were filled with shock and fear. In the next moment, they were sliced into numerous pieces by the vast sword shadow. Balls of blood mist exploded. Many sword energies sliced and sliced, turning them into meat and blood. Just this sword alone killed the 10 celestial realm cultivators in front of Zhong Shou. At this moment, he was just 1,000 feet away from the tower. He was so close and there was no one blocking him anymore. Within Zhong Shou's sleeves, dozens of silver-white streaks of light spread out and struck out in all directions. It was Hanshi and the 36 soldier ants under it. They were all as swift as light, unbelievably quick. Everywhere they passed, blood light flashed. At this moment, Hanshi's combat strength could already exceed normal peak celestial realm cultivators. As for his subordinates, those Saint Fire Soldier ants went through the tribulation with him. Although they hadn't stepped into the spirit realm, their strength was enough to fight above their level. Their minds were as one and their coordination was far from what the immortal realm cultivators sealed by the stone platform could compare to. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 immortal realms were killed. It caused the remaining prisoners here to show fear on their faces. Zhong Shou released the holy fire silver ants and ignored them. His figure flashed as he rushed toward the tower in the distance. Taking a step in the air, Zhang Xian's figure flashed. Then, he heard a furious holler from within, "Preposterous!" Following the sound was a flail burning with pale white flames. At the end of the flail were a dozen or so iron balls which smashed through the air. Wherever the sky incinerating flame passed, black lines would appear between heaven and earth. Zhong Shou's brows rose up and then he laughed coldly. Peak of immortal step? This sky-burning flame was not bad. In this death jail, it was enough to fight against God realm cultivators who weren't from the Lu family. However, in his eyes it was just SOSO. Be it bloodline power or personal strength, it was far weaker than him. He still stepped down, and with a loud explosion, those iron balls were all scattered. All the pale white flames were extinguished. What replaced it was Zhong Shou's lightning blaze thousand flames, pitch-black flames. Following that, a second kick was launched into the air. When the energy arrived, the spiritual formation was instantly smashed under the strong pressure. The upper level of the tower was kicked over and a section was forcefully sliced off. God mirror? No. That voice was filled with terror. A person suddenly flew out from within the tower. He dashed down into the deep abyss and fled. Zhong Shou laughed coldly and didn't stop him. However, a ball of fire charged out from his sleeves and turned into the shape of a qilin in the air. It suddenly bit down and captured the person who was trying to escape. Then, it happily bit down on the war prisoner and sent him in front of Zhong Shou. It was like a cat that had caught a mouse and was trying to suck up to its master. Zhong Shou smiled and patted Sherry's head. Then, he turned around and looked behind him. From when he appeared to when he attacked to when he captured this person, only 5 breaths had passed. On those 100 stone platforms, there were still 50 people fighting with Hanshi and its subordinate. After the initial surprise attack, it would be tough for Hanshi and the soldier ants to take down the lives of these people. However, these celestial realm cultivators were also having a tough time holding on. A cold glow flashed in Samuraim's eyes and killing intent appeared. Lu Wubbing opened his mouth not far away. "Monarch, please wait. Please show mercy." Zhong Shou acknowledged. The sword attack that was about to explode out retracted. Then, he looked towards Lu Wubbing in surprise, his heart filled with doubt. Lu Wubbing didn't delay and explained right away. Most of these cultivators have their families broken and they just want to leave the death jail. They are all pitiful people, but to ruler, they are all people you can use. I know that although ruler has close to 10,000 iron cavalry, you lack high-grade Dao soldiers. Aren't these people just suitable? Ruler's master's injuries haven't healed. However, his spells can still go up against end-realm cultivators. With him helping from the outside, bringing them out will just require a little more effort. He said, "These cultivators have deep animosity with the Lu family and their personalities are tough to tame." Before they were sent to the death jail, most of them were talents and wouldn't be willing to be under others. If they are willing to swear on their souls to follow ruler and be restricted, that would be the best. If not, you can use a secret technique to wipe away their memories. If not, when you want to return to the Lu family and take over the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, these people will be problems. The words at the start were Zhong Shou's explanation to persuade him to stop. The words at the back were targeted at the celestial realm cultivators on the stone platform. Zhong Shou's eyes flashed and he was in deep thought. Dao soldiers? He didn't only lack spirit realm cultivators under him. He didn't even have a single celestial realm cultivator. They were indeed lacking in high-end combat strength. It was okay now, but as time went on, things wouldn't be good. especially when the cloud world's spiritual wave rose and many cultivators returned. However, not only were these people strong, but they weren't weak either. However, because their vital energy was weak, and they were restricted by the stone platform, they were so weak under his sword. After exiting the death jail, no matter where they were, many powers would try to recruit them. They would be treated as VIPs and respected. Were they really willing to be Zhong Shou's Dao soldiers? However, if they were in other forms, they wouldn't be restricted, wouldn't swear and wouldn't be refined by him. Zhong Shou really couldn't be at ease. It had nothing to do with morals, he just couldn't trust them. He wasn't willing to spend so much effort to bring them out of the 9 extreme death jail only to have someone stab him in the back. Zhong Shou wasn't a good person either. There was a reason why these people were trapped here, and most of them weren't good people either. Why did Zhong Shou have to waste so much effort to save these cultivators? As for what Lu Wubing said about returning to the Lu family and taking charge of the sky-burning Saint Dynasty, it was just something he didn't care about at all. At this moment, the expressions of the celestial realm cultivators on the stone platform changed. They looked at Zhong Shou nervously. They knew that their lives were in the hands of this person who could kill dozens of celestial realm cultivators with a flick of his finger. When the other dozen people heard Lu Wubing's words, their expressions changed. They were tempted and hesitant. Especially when they heard the words End Realm, the faces of the 50 of them lit up. As for Lu Wubing's words, they surprisingly kept silent. No one was annoyed and no one fought back. They were all in deep thought. Zhong Shou thought about it, but he still couldn't make a decision. He looked at the people below and then his lips curled up as he retracted his sword attack. As Lu Wubing had said, these people were indeed useful people to him. Under the torture of the fire death jail year after year, they were extremely strong. On one hand, their minds were trained to be really firm. On the other hand, they had no way to resist the temptation of being able to escape from the jail and unlock their chains. As long as they could escape, they were willing to pay any price. The nameless sword returned to his sleeves. He also kept Hanshi and the dozens of soldier ant. He temporarily didn't bother about the cultivators below. Instead, he grabbed the Lu family peak celestial realm cultivator who escaped from the tower. "Are you willing to answer my question?" he asked, only to see that person grit his teeth. His eyes were filled with venom and hatred as he looked over like a venomous snake. Although he was in a bad state, his eyes were really firm. With just one look, Zhong Shou knew that normal methods wouldn't be able to make him speak. Thus, he didn't say any nonsense and wasn't willing to waste time to ask. He pressed down on his head and directly used the soul-searching technique to search his memories. That person's soul was terrified and crazily struggled. While trying to stop his thoughts, he also tried his best to wipe out all his memories. However, he wasn't as fast as Zhong Shou. Threads of Buddhist faction wish power surged in and had the ability to suppress and repair. "So you are called Lu Shua? What a good name. I didn't have time to send a message." Zhong Shou's heart was really calm. This was as he had expected. The tower was broken with one step. At that time, Lu Shua wanted to inform the few death jail guards about this matter. What was destroyed was not only the spiritual formation of the tower, but also the method this person used to inform the few Lu family venerables. However, at this moment, what he cared about the most wasn't that but Zhong Weiran. He didn't immediately kill him and instead chose to capture him. He wanted to obtain news about Zhong Weiran from this person. As expected, he came here before. Zhong Shou was at a loss. In this person's memory. In his memories, a devilish and majestic man like a god forcefully charged in. No one was able to stop him, not even a thousandth of a second. Instead, all the sinners here were either dead or injured. He continued to search, but there were no more memories related to Zhong Weiran. This person also knew very little about the 5th layer and below. A moment later, this person's soul slowly couldn't take it anymore. Zhong Shou tried his best to maintain, but it was useless. In the end, it collapsed. The doubt in Zhong Shou's eyes became thicker and thicker. It seemed like his father really came to this death jail. Then, at this moment, where was Zhong Weiran? Did he escape? Or was he trapped below the 6th layer? Looking below, Zhong Shou felt his head hurt. He needed to think of a way to deal with these celestial realm cultivators. Chapter 9:17. A mere 8 hours later, a red-robed old man who looked to be in his 60s was standing on top of the ruins of the stone tower. He walked around the ruins. His face was filled with a cold, mocking expression. "You can't even send out a message, how useless! You deserve to have your soul searched." His eyes landed on a corpse with a twisted head and stopped for a moment. The red-robed old man shook his head, retracting his gaze and looking in other directions. Killing 10 celestial realm experts in one strike, 6 of them were killed by a flying knife. Crushing the abyss-suppressing tower with 1 foot. Amazing, how amazing! How overbearing, as expected from the person who could slash out that sword outside of the death jail. Is he not planning to cover his tracks anymore? That's right, since he is here, he won't be able to cover it anymore. How problematic. Although this person isn't God Realm, his combat strength is stronger than normal initial God Realm cultivators. If he was outside of the death jail, he wouldn't be able to accurately judge this person's true cultivation and current realm. Then, at this moment, he roughly knew the strength of the person who forcefully flattened the abyss-suppressing tower and 100 stone platforms. He looked at the surrounding stone platforms, only to see that many of them were smashed to pieces. Hundreds of broken chains were scattered all over the ground. The person who attacked was really cunning and careful. Many of the traces were wiped away to set up a deceptive formation. However, the death energy here wasn't right, it was a little too thin. The red-robed old man thought about it seriously and then laughed coldly. "You saved them? Just a few dozen celestial realm experts, and you actually dared to do that. Wasn't he being too petty? Oh, using them to refine Dao weapons is not bad." There were no other useful clues around, so the old man didn't look anymore. He retracted his spiritual sense and entered deep thought. The person who entered the 9 extreme death jail was obviously prepared and had a card up his sleeve. However, his foundations were definitely shallow, otherwise, he wouldn't have been tempted by just a few dozen celestial realm cultivators. Then, why did he want to capture the person in charge here and search his soul? What did this person want to know? What was his goal for entering the death jail? The old man's eyes flashed, and moments later, his lips curled up, revealing a smile of understanding. Threads of killing intent appeared on his face. His escaping technique is not bad. At the very least, he could teleport several hundred miles away in an instant. This is confidence. Even if I know where you are roughly, you can't find it in such a short time? This aura is quite familiar as well. It must be someone I've met before. Unfortunately, it's too faint and I can't tell. He looked deeply into the abyss, but his body didn't enter. Instead, he stepped into the void and directly passed through the death prison world. Xiao Chun strolled through the astral flame dust great formation and the many space-time storms outside. About an hour later, they were far away from the 9 extreme death prison. A palace of fiery red jade with a radius of over 100,000 feet appeared before the elderly man's eyes. Hidden in the layers of space-time, it should have been impossible to see. However, the old man's divine thought directly reflected the location of the Fire Jade Palace in his mind. As soon as they entered the palace, a few disciples of the Lu clan dressed as servants stepped forward to stop them. However, when they saw the appearance of the person who came, their expressions turned solemn. Then, they all retreated and bowed respectfully. The red-robed old man still had his head lowered and didn't even look at him. He walked forwards and headed straight for the central courtyard. In just a moment, he was in front of a fiery red hall. Although it was a hall, it was more like a giant piece of jade. The moment the old man arrived, a flat questioning voice spread out from within. Lu Tianqing, why aren't you guarding the 9 extreme death prison? Why did you run over to my place? The voice was like jade, cold and calm. It was really nice to hear. The red-robed old man didn't reply at first. Instead, he bowed respectfully towards the direction of the hall. Lu Tianqing greets Saint Venerable. After straightening his body, he opened his mouth and replied, Tianqing is here to ask for help from Saint Venerable. Ask for help? Did my Lu clan face a calamity? Or did something happen in the 9 extreme death prison? You should know that I have stopped caring about worldly matters. If it is a normal matter, then don't come to me. I know. I came this time to ask Saint Venerable to take the life of someone who snuck into the 9 extreme death prison. Before Lu Tianqing's words landed, he felt a furious intent pierce into the depths of his soul. He knew that the person in the palace was obviously impatient. He said calmly, if it was a normal person, it would be easy for me to kill that person. I might even be able to ignore him. However, this person's instant space technique is amazing. When he hides his aura, it is tough to find traces of him. Tianqing suspects that this person has an end-realm cultivator helping him. His words were as concise as possible. When he said the final sentence, the oppressive might disappeared. In this world, once an end-realm Saint Venerable was involved, it was never a small matter. End-realm? An extremely huge spiritual sense spread out in all directions. It swept layer after layer of space, world after world. Moments later, that jade-like voice spoke once more. Why did this person enter the death jail? Don't tell me that you know nothing. Lu Tianqing's eyes flashed, the cold smile in his eyes became thicker. As expected, there was an end realm. The Saint Venerable's spiritual sense definitely sensed some traces, which was why he asked. He wasn't surprised by the person's question. The sky-burning Lu family was one of the top powers in this region. They had 3 end realms. However, because of that, they couldn't make enemies on all sides, especially when the opponent was also an end realm Saint Venerable. They had to be careful and couldn't be careless. Even if it was the 9 extreme death jail, if the enemy had a goal, he wouldn't harm their interests too much. Then, they could just let him do as he wished. They could just close one eye and let it pass. It was okay as long as they didn't say anything. If it was possible, they could even make him owe them a favor. There are very few clues and I only know a little. I guess that this person should be Lu Hanyan's son. He most probably entered the 9 extreme death jail for his mother. Oh! The jade door opened with a loud rumble. A young man in a purple golden robe with a handsome face, red lips, and white teeth stepped out from inside the hall. His expression was cold and solemn as he looked at the red-robed old man standing outside the hall. Hanyan's son, are you joking? Did I judge wrongly? Did he have help or was he alone? There are a total of 2 people. As for whether or not the other person helped, I don't know. Lu Tianqing smiled faintly and said indifferently, however, isn't the sacred venerable a little too ignorant? I heard that Hanyan's son is now a direct bloodline member of the Lu family. He also obtained the help of Tsangyan Hall head Fangzhou. If he didn't have any ability, how could he do that? As for whether or not I judged wrongly, I am not sure. I can only guess from some clues. I didn't personally see him and I am not sure. I can only say that he is Hanyan's son. Chapter 9:18. As for whether or not I am wrong, I am not sure. I can only guess from some clues. Without personally seeing it, how can I be sure that this person is Hanyan's son? Listening on quietly, the purple-robed middle-aged man's gaze was like a knife as it swept over. Lu Tianqing only felt like his body was being burned. His pupils constricted and fear appeared in his eyes. He still maintained his calmness and said flatly, Saint Venerable can just take a look and you will know. Why do you need to ask me? No matter what, this person was able to invite an End Realm Saint Venerable to help him. His background is definitely not ordinary. Saint Venerable, you won't make a trip for nothing. The purple-robed, middle-aged man frowned and scoffed. His expression relaxed slightly. This person is really good at instant space techniques such that you can't do anything about it? Indeed, he can teleport hundreds of miles of land in an instant. Even Saint Realm cultivators like us can do that. However, the distance is far above and we use up a lot of energy. However, this person's instant space ability doesn't use up any energy at all. Moreover, looking at his sword techniques, normal initial God Realm experts might not be his match. Apart from that, there should be someone good at formations to help him cover his aura. When he said this, Lu Tianqing smiled. It isn't that I am helpless, I just need to spend some time. Moreover, since I have already guessed his background, then I just need to wait at Lu Hanyan's place. However, no matter who this person is, this matter is really important. This is why I came to ask Saint Venerable. The purple-robed middle-aged man nodded and was deep in thought. Thinking about it for a moment, he laughed. You are really smart. You are really scheming. Forget it, it is okay to waste some time for this person. He said, that End Realm aura is really foreign but also a little familiar. I am really curious. Coincidentally, I can also meet him and see which world this person is from, to be able to silently reach the Saint Realm Venerable. When he said this, the numerous layers of space in front of him started to twist and fold. It took Lu Tianqing an entire hour to cross the space. In front of the purple-robed middle-aged man, the concept of distance didn't exist at all. In just one step, he was outside of the 9 Extreme Death Jail and within the Starfire Dust Formation. His gaze was deep as he looked into the distance. This time, Lin Xuanxuang, who was hidden several dozen worlds away, also sensed something. He suddenly stood up in the Great Heaven Palace. Then, he placed his hand on his forehead and sighed. Why would this person be alarmed? Given his current situation, there was nothing he could do when this person was prepared. She couldn't help but fret. Could it be that she could only pray that her disciple would be safe and sound? Light flashed in her beautiful eyes. From the corner of her eyes, she saw Jingyin beside her. Her face was ashen white and her eyes were closed. Her palms were clasped together and she was mumbling something. Just by listening to a few sentences, he knew that it was a prayer scripture. Lin Xuanxuang immediately laughed coldly. What kind of place is the 9 Extreme Death Prison? Even in your previous life, the power of prophecy might not be useful. What's more, I have yet to awaken the wisdom of my previous life. Jingyin was startled. The expression on her face was even more terrified. Saint Xian Shuang, is the beginning and end Buddha in trouble right now? Just now, Jingyin felt her heart jump. I don't know the reason, but I know that it has something to do with the beginning and end Buddha. It might endanger his life, and there are some variables within. Tisk. You haven't awakened your memories, and you have already gathered 80% of your ability. When Lin Xuanxuang heard this, her lips curled up in disdain. His life isn't in danger, it is just a little problematic. No matter what, he is the only disciple that I Lin Xuanxuang like in my life. If I didn't have full confidence, why would I let him die in the death jail? Jingyin's face was filled with doubt and disbelief. She had already experienced how unreliable this Xian Shuang was. How would one dig a hole to harm others? Till today, each time she thought about what happened that day, she would have a certain desire. She really wanted to strangle this Xian Shuang to death. It came from her instincts, and there were several times when she nearly couldn't control herself. Lin Xuanxuang didn't notice at all. When she saw Jingyin's expression, she was even more annoyed. Do you know about the Lu family's marrow-burning blood spirit curse? Marrow-burning blood spirit? Jingyin's brow rose up. Why hadn't she heard about it? Recently, Zhong Shou seemed to have been tortured by this curse technique. That day when he was in trouble, he fled to Songling World because of it. The Lu family's 9 extreme death jail technique is similar to the marrow-burning blood spirit curse, pretty much coming from the same source. Apart from that, there are close to 3,000 Lu family disciples who die in the death jail. A large portion of the blood essence soul will be absorbed by the death jail restriction formation. At this moment, Zhong Shou has the blood spirit curse on him. When she said this, Lin Xuanxuang felt that it wasn't right and shook her head. Why am I telling you all this? Even if I told you, you wouldn't understand. You only need to know that although he is in danger, but in this desperate situation, there was still a ray of hope. Who knows? He might be able to grasp the sky-burning Lu family's strongest bloodline. Although she said that, her heart was filled with uncertainty. How tough would it be to push the sky-burning blood to the highest level? Zhong Shou's journey in the 9 extreme death jail would be much tougher than others. It was already really rare that he didn't die or go crazy. She couldn't help but think about whether or not she should ask a helper to call Zhong Shou's other master over. With the two of them here, that person over there wouldn't dare to be rash. At the same time, within the 9 extreme death jail was Zhong Shou, who was teleporting. Suddenly, he frowned and looked at the sky. This place was still on the 6th layer, a world covered in ice and snow, known as the Ice Wheel Death Jail. Yin power spread all over and cold energy spread about. Similarly, at noon, that was when the forbidden technique would take effect. Endless cold seeped into one's body. Like there were numerous ice wheels cutting and grinding in one's soul. It directly attacked one's soul. In terms of pain, it was above the 5th layer. When Zhong Shou thought about it once, his entire consciousness was frozen and he had no ability to think at all. What annoyed him the most wasn't the pain in his soul. To him, this torture wasn't much stronger than the marrow-burning blood spirit curse. However, when the forbidden technique touched his body, what entered his body was ice-cold power. However, it also triggered the blood spirit power, causing the vital energy to flow backward and enter his eyes. The blood essence in his bone marrow was burning. Although the surroundings were filled with Yin power, it was useless against him. Even the ice wheel forbidden technique seemed to have weakened by a lot. This vital energy flow has something to do with the forbidden technique of the 9 extreme death jail. The first time in the 1,000-knife death jail, it was triggered by this. Apart from the time Hanshi swallowed those mutated beast pellets and gave back foreign essence energy. Each time it was triggered by the forbidden technique. Zhong Shou could roughly feel that he had touched a little of the meridians of the vital energy flow. However, he still didn't know where the blood spirit power came from. Chapter 920. A lot of the marrow-burning blood spirit curse power was consumed when Zhong Shou stepped into the celestial realm. Originally, if nothing unexpected happened, all of the curse power would completely disappear within 3 to 5 months. However, the moment he entered the death jail, the marrow-burning blood spirit curse changed once more, becoming stronger and stronger each time. Speaking of which, the blood spirit curse power was first strengthened in the 1,000-knife death jail. Only the layer caused by Hanshi didn't increase. Could it be that it was also because of this forbidden technique? Was this blood spirit curse power related to the forbidden technique in the 9 extreme death jail? Zhong Shou thought about it for a moment and then shook his head. He had a rough guess, but he was unable to confirm it. He thought to himself that after exiting the 9 extreme death jail, he had to find a top-secret technique that could deal with the energy meridians. With such a technique, why would he need to be afraid that he wouldn't be able to find the source of the blood spirit curse power? Moreover, at this time, how would he have the time to think about the reason why the vital energy was flowing in the opposite direction? Looking at the sky, Zhong Shou's face was alternating between green and white. Just now, he felt his heart palpitate, his heart and chest couldn't calm down. His temples were also twitching. It was an obvious heart wave reaction, a warning sign. He didn't know what happened outside the death jail. Most probably that extreme flame Saint Venerable has been alerted. Beside him, Lu Wubbing also smiled bitterly. He was obviously the same as Zhong Shou and felt danger. I was careless. I deserved to die, causing ruler to be in danger. Luckily, with Xian Shuang Saint Venerable outside, extreme flame won't easily attack ruler. Although he said that, Zhong Shou didn't see any anxiousness from his expression. He was still really calm, like he didn't care at all, and was really confident. Zhong Shou looked deeply at Lu Wubbing, unable to make a judgment. Did Lu Wubbing do it on purpose for him to be in such a desperate situation? A few breaths later, he calmly activated the Star Dao seed once more. At this moment it was useless to say anything. It was also useless to regret and blame. It was precisely because of the imminent danger that he wanted to reach the 8th floor of the 9 Extreme Death prison as quickly as possible. Even if he was in a desperate situation this time. So before he died, he had to see his poor mother one last time. There were only 2 entrances to the 7th floor, located in the north and south. The holy fire silver ants spread out over thousands of miles. About 2 hours later, Zhong Shouxin's heart twitched. It was Hanshi. It had found the entrance to the south. He imprinted a scene thousands of miles away into the depths of his soul. Similar to the 5th floor, there were over 100 stone platforms and a tall tower guarding it. However, Zhong Shouxin's heart sank when he saw the cultivators sealed on the platform. They were all mid-celestial realm and above. 3 to 5 of them had strong auras and were hiding to the late celestial realm. These were not enough to make him afraid. However, that tall tower was clearly the divine sense of a true deity realm expert. If the 6th floor was like this, then what would the 7th floor be like? It seemed to sense the soldier ant that was spying thousands of miles away. There was a cold scoff from within the black tower and a fiery red blade shadow slashed over. Luckily, that soldier ant was extremely quick. In the moment of life and death, it flashed several miles away. That was why it wasn't killed by that person. However, the divine sense that was transmitted back was really weak. Zhong Shou's brow rose up. Using the Star Dao seeds scattered there, he teleported the soldier ant hundreds of miles away. At this moment, he felt intense pain in his spiritual sense. Threads of cold energy entered his body. Without needing to think, Zhong Shou knew that this was the ice wheel soul twisting technique acting up once more. In other words, it would attack once every 12 hours. Not long after he entered the 6th floor, he had experienced it once. Now it was noon. Zhong Shou took in a deep breath and closed his eyes. He didn't block off his nerves and meridians to cut off the feeling of pain. Instead, he used the illusionary heart mirror to replace his vision. His body flashed and in just a few minutes, he arrived at the entrance of the space. At this moment, the vital energy in his body was flowing in reverse. It was at its peak. The pain in his body and eyes was getting more and more intense. Zhong Shou didn't have any intentions of stopping to rest. Just as he arrived, he charged towards the entrance of the abyss. He already knew about Zhong Weiran. The God Realm cultivators here might know more. However, it wasn't the time to capture and interrogate him. At this moment, on the hundreds of stone platforms, the eyes of all the celestial cultivators turned red. However, all of them were unable to attack. Zhong Shou's 79 Star Dao seeds strolled dozens of miles of space. His body directly turned illusionary as he teleported in the air. These celestial cultivators were unable to lock onto him. Just as Zhong Shou was about to charge into the abyss, a maniacal laugh spread out from the tall tower. It is this space technique again. 2 years ago, my predecessor was caught off guard and was killed. He successfully passed. You kid, you don't have such good luck. If you escape, how am I different from that piece of trash? Along with the voice, a person suddenly appeared below Zhong Shou. It was the entrance of the space abyss. Scarlet flames burned wildly within several thousand feet of this place, causing space and laws to distort. It covered the space abyss. Even the star Tao seeds that Zhong Shou spread out were burned and repelled outside. The soul that was split within also gave out a feeling of pain. It was a sign that his mind was damaged. Zhong Shou's eyes squinted. That person from 2 years ago? Using the space technique to kill his predecessor? But Zhong Weiran? In other words, Zhong Weiran wasn't within the 6th layer. As expected, how would his father be stopped here? He didn't think much about it. Zhong Shou retracted his thoughts. Using the illusionary heart mirror, he saw a blade light that could fill up heaven and earth swiftly slash over. Zhong Shou didn't block. A turtle appeared in his sleeve. He raised up the giant shield and heard a loud clang. The blue fire Xian turtle retreated slightly, and then its expression became slightly dispirited. A God Realm expert's blade was something that even it had to block. Zhong Shou stood on the turtle's back and didn't move. However, a silver blade light slid out from his sleeves. It was light like it had no strength at all. It didn't seem quick, but in the blink of an eye, it was in front of the God Realm expert. That person laughed coldly. However, in just 1,000th of a second, his eyes were filled with fear. He looked towards Zhong Shou in shock. The latter's eyes were half closed, only his mind was more focused. Time, speed up. Space, stack. Cause and effect, invert. Fate, lock. Life and death, reverse. Lifespan, burn. In just a breath, 10 years of lifespan was burned up. It also caused the power of that blade power to increase by 3 times. That person looked at Zhong Shou and a blood flower exploded out from his brow. The silver blade light pierced his brain. His face was still filled with disbelief. Chapter 921. 3 days later, Zhong Shou's back was covered in sweat as he walked on a blue ocean that was surging with waves. The 7th layer was known as the Spirit Ocean Death Jail. Looking out, one could only see blue ocean water. It made one's heart open up. However, the blue and pure water was filled with poison. Apart from that, this world also twisted all sorts of laws. When one walked on the ocean's surface, there would be magnetism thousands of times stronger than normal. Not only did one's body have to bear thousands of times more pressure than before, even the items hidden in the heaven and earth bag couldn't escape. It caused one to face the danger of falling into the ocean at every moment, with no place to rest at all. The restrictions here were different from the previous few layers. It was wind. The bone-chilling wind was endless and didn't stop at all. Not only did it cause huge waves on the blue ocean, it was also filled with power that seeped into the depths of one's bones. Not only was it as painful as the ice wheel punishment, but if one didn't block it, it would cause one's vital energy and essence to rot and destroy, stealing one's lifespan. Just a day ago, Zhong Shou personally saw an intermediate celestial realm cultivator fall into the ocean when he couldn't take it anymore. In just 60 breaths, there was nothing left of him, not even a drop of blood. Who knew what kind of poison was in the ocean, such that even a celestial realm cultivator couldn't block it? At this moment, Zhong Shou was extremely tired and sweating profusely. Every 100 miles, he would have to stop to catch his breath. The wind was endless, causing the vital energy in his body to flow in reverse, not stopping at all. Who knew how long he would have to hold on for before it would end? Everything that could be thrown away in his heaven and earth bag was already cleared. However, his body still felt like it was filled with lead, extremely heavy. At this moment, he could still hold on, but he wished that he could directly fall into the ocean and just die. Actually, if he used the blue fire Xian turtle instead of walking, it would be much easier. However, it was a little inconvenient to teleport and instead increased the burden. On the contrary, Lu Wubing's situation was much better than Zhong Shou's. His aura was flowing smoothly and one couldn't see his expression from the mask. However, his eyes were filled with worry. Maybe because Zhong Shou was reaching his limit, he persuaded. Ruler, why do you have to do this? That extreme flame Saint Venerable probably already knows where we are. No matter how hurried he was, it was useless. The 8th level is dangerous, so why don't we stop and rest for a while to recover before making plans? Zhong Shou snorted, his expression indifferent. How would he not know what Lu Wubing said? At this very moment, there was a thought so strong that it made Zhong Shou want to bow down and worship, penetrating his soul. It was a divine sense pressure that was even more strenuous than the magnetic force of this world. It was Xian flames. He was somewhere in the death jail, or even outside the 9 extreme death jail. He was looking down coldly and didn't try to hide at all. However, just the pressure that this thread of spiritual remembrance brought was already difficult for him to endure. That person didn't seem like he wanted to attack him, but he was still high up and was mocking him. It gave one a feeling like an extremely noble ruler was looking at a mouse that was slithering in front of him. A mouse that he was slightly interested in. He didn't have any killing intent and didn't retract that soul suppression. It brought with it a bone-chilling coldness that quietly pressed over. However, it nearly caused him to be unable to take it. Maybe this person was waiting to see when he would collapse and when he would be tossed into the ocean to be like the person from before, his corpse and soul disappearing. There was also a faint sense of oppression that wanted to make him bow down and kowtow. It was like he was saying that as long as Zhong Shou admitted his mistake, he would be let off. It is okay. Taking in a deep breath, Zhong Shou smiled brightly. Maybe he was really used to it, or maybe he was distracted. The marrow-burning blood spirit curse and the pain of vital energy flowing backwards couldn't affect his mind anymore. Under this suppression, there was an unprecedented vengeful energy in his chest. For some reason, he wasn't willing to lose face in front of this person and become a joke. He also didn't know that he was actually so stubborn in his bones. To put it nicely, he was stubborn and strong. To put it bluntly, he was asking to die. However, since he was already in such a desperate situation, why did he need to lower his head to this person? Seemingly sensing Zhong Shou's thoughts, that end-realm spiritual remembrance suddenly became stronger. Zhong Shou's body shook and he stumbled, nearly falling into the ocean. A moment later, he finally managed to hold on. Lu Wubing didn't notice at all, his eyes were filled with shock. Why did it reach such a level? At this moment, he also knew that Zhong Shou's body situation was weird. He was most probably affected by the marrow-burning blood spirit curse. However, with Zhong Shou's thick foundations, how could he reach such a stage where he was about to collapse? Zhong Shou didn't bother. The moment the spiritual sense pressed down, his bones cracked. All the bones in his body let out a series of explosive sounds. His soul remembrance was almost crushed, but he still managed to hold on. Then, he withstood the enormous pressure and took another step forward. The heaven and earth in front of him changed once more. He could see that there was a giant whirlpool spinning in the clouds, covering thousands of miles of land. He was surrounded by a raging storm. Countless lightning bolts were flashing within the storm. This is the Nether Jail Gate you were talking about? The 7th layer was the Spirit Ocean Death Jail with 2 entrances. As for the abyss of time and space between the 7th and 8th levels, there was only one, and the location did not shift. It was right in the middle of the Spirit Ocean. With Zhong Shou's Star Dao Seed and Instant Space ability, he was able to reach the Nether Jail Gate. It took him more than 3 days to get here. However, just as he felt like he couldn't hold on anymore, he finally saw the entrance to the 8th layer. Lu Wubing didn't reply, his expression was dim. Zhong Shoxin understood and knew that he was sad about the death of his parent. Thinking about it for a moment, he said flatly, "You can stay here, you don't have to follow. If I die, you can find a way out yourself. If I am lucky enough to break out, I will help you out." After he finished speaking, he tossed a jade plate over from afar. This was a space magical treasure that he had obtained in the Zhongling world. It was only slightly stronger than the Lingjie ring, and was far from the celestial treasure Juntian Palace that he got from a God Realm cultivator. However, at this moment, there were hundreds of celestial realm experts hidden within. They were all sealed up and hidden within this jade plate. The celestial realm cultivators within needed someone to suppress them. Once they entered the 8th layer, Zhong Shou might not be able to take care of them all. Why not pass it to Lu Wubing? With his cultivation that was close to God Realm, he would be fine. Lu Wubing was stunned. He knew that his cultivation wasn't enough, and if he followed, he would only be a burden. Thus, he didn't reject and took the jade plate. I understand. I will definitely not disappoint Jun Shang's trust. Chapter 922. I understand. I won't let you down. The moment the jade plate entered his hand, it shook slightly. Zhong Shou's expression became much more relaxed. Suppressing the jade plate did use up a lot of his strength. Lu Wubing's brow furrowed and he clenched his fist to stop the jade plate from collapsing. The hundreds of celestial realm cultivators weren't all willing. There were some who agreed to leave the stone platform and break the chains. Actually, they didn't believe that Zhong Shou could escape the death jail. At this moment, they were also struggling. Luckily, the restrictions that he helped Zhong Shou to lay down were strong enough and could be maintained. However, at most, I only have half a month. If he went all out, he would only be able to suppress the plate for half a month. He carefully kept the jade plate into his sleeve. Lu Wubing said, "There are 6 God Realm green lightning eagles guarding this place. They were the protector spirit beasts of the Lu family Saint Realm old ancestor. Back then, my parents died here. Ruler needs to be careful." Zhong Shou's eyes flashed as he looked at the intense storm in the distance. One could vaguely see streaks of cyan light shuttling back and forth in the storm. They brought with them extremely strong magnetic storms and numerous lightning currents. The Thunder Eagle was one of the descendants of the Thunder Luan. Looking at the 6 Thunder Eagles, looking at the 6 Lightning Eagles, the ability that power grasped was far from that of a god beast. In this place where the wind and lightning rampaged, his combat strength would be close to double. To break through here was indeed not a normal level of danger. Especially under the current situation where he was distracted by his body, he was unable to go all out. Frowning, Zhong Shou shook his head. Was he going to stop now that he knew how difficult it was? At this point, there was no way out and so was his chance of survival. Since he didn't fear death, then there was nothing to fear in this 9 extreme death jail. A pair of black lightning wings spread out behind his back. Lightning blaze 1,000 flash, lightning and fire mixed together. A pair of black wings each stretched 70,000 feet. With a slight flap, it brought Zhong Shou up into the sky. At the start, it was only 1,000 times the gravity. The magnetism power would increase by 10%. By the time they reached a height of 70,000 feet, the gravity had already increased by over 7,000 times. The bones and joints in Zhong Shou's body started to creak out. Fortunately, his body refinement technique was successful, and his physical body was only weaker than deity realm cultivators. At this moment, he was still able to hold on. However, the een and violent wind above was getting stronger and stronger, slicing into his body. It caused the marrow-burning blood spirit curse power to become stronger and stronger. His entire body seemed to have spontaneously combusted. As soon as they entered the storm, the 6 lightning eagles were startled. Immediately, one of them charged out and crashed into the ground. Zhong Shou's expression did not change. His momentum did not falter. 37 Imperial Dao Dragon Tooth swords scattered around him. Then, beams of sword light, which looked like the Milky Way hanging upside down, followed by Zhong Shou's figure. It destroyed everything, smashed everything, and rushed up. bolts of lightning suddenly exploded. He wanted to see if it was the same lightning-attributed energy. He who had the Lightning Phoenix ability as well as the 7-star Mysterious Lightning ability. Compared to these lightning eagles, who was stronger and who was weaker? Instantly, he clashed with that lightning eagle. First, lightning flashed. The entire void rang out with a loud rumble that shook thousands of miles. Next, the sword light collided with the body of the viridescent Thunderhawk. Thousands of sword lights clashed with the iron feathers, bird beak, and eagle claws. In just a moment, the lightning eagle gave out a tragic cry. A ball of blood exploded out from the left wing. At the crucial moment, it turned into a lightning glow and retreated dozens of miles away. The other few lightning eagles all roared out in rage. They stopped looking on as they all pounced down. Zhong Shou's expression was really serious. He used the lightning wings to fly in the air, going up against the magnetism power. Clumps of sword shadows continued to slash at the ball of green lightning in front of them. It seemed like they wanted to continue to chase and slay that lightning eagle under their swords. However, just as the other few charged over anxiously, his body flashed. When he was dozens of miles away, he teleported once more and was at the side of the Nether Jail Gate. It was the Star Dao Seed, the instant space teleportation ability. He was too lazy to bother about the few giant birds that were crying out in rage behind him. Zhong Shou took a step forwards and wanted to directly enter the 8th layer of the death jail. However, just as he was about to step in, a tyrannical pressure suddenly came from the distant void. A scoff spread into his ear. "You are all useless fools." Who knows if he was talking about Zhong Shou or scolding those lightning eagles? Lu Juyan. Zhong Shou's face was ashen white. He himself didn't feel anything weird in his body. Juyan didn't seem to want to directly attack him. However, the space abyss of the 8th layer was forcefully locked down. It caused him to be unable to step in at all. Those 6 lightning phoenixes cried out once more. It was like they were enraged out of humiliation, bringing with them balls of lightning as they charged towards where he was standing. Zhong Shou's thoughts only lasted for a moment before he woke up from his disappointment and unwillingness. Then, he laughed instead of being angry. Did he want to use the strength of the 6 lightning eagles to force him back, or kill him? Forget it, let's just follow what this Saint Venerable said. Let's fight to the death with these 6 lightning eagles. Who knows how long this Saint Venerable could lock down this Nether Jail Abyss Gate. The restrictions of the 9 worlds were connected and coexisted with one another. If they weren't connected, they would definitely break apart. That was exactly what he wanted. He slashed down with his sword and a full 5 different long-ing phoenixes appeared behind him. They coiled around the sword and then merged into one. Platinum Dragon Sword. Lightning Dragon Sword. Mysterious Dragon Sword. Flame Dragon Vast Sword. Instant Space Dragon Sword. Slash. 9 True Dragon Sword Technique. Zhong Shou could stack 9 swords and merge 7 swords. However, he couldn't merge more than 4 swords into one. However, at this moment, when he was in danger and was suppressed by the End Realm's spiritual sense, without thinking, he slashed out and forcefully merged the 5 swords into one. The sword attack was flawless and extremely sharp. The lightning eagle that smashed over felt danger right away, fear appearing in its eyes. Without hesitation, it turned around to try to escape from the sword attack. However, this sword light that was like the incarnation of an absolute beginning giant dragon wasn't restricted by space at all. The sword energy swept across. Even if the lightning eagle dodged in time, one of its wings was broken along with a small part of its body. Like a shooting star, it fell towards the storm. Zhong Shou didn't look, closing his eyes and using the illusionary heart mirror to look at the world. That blood-colored sword shadow didn't stop as it turned around and slashed. Ice-horned dragon sword. Wind cloud dragon sword. Flame dragon vast sword. Instant space dragon sword. Lightning dragon sword. Another one, 5 swords merged into one. 3,000 miles of wind and clouds stirred, the water in the space was frozen into ice. Intense lightning gathered on the sword. Sky burning flame, lightning blaze, thousand flash, shattering the world, shattering the Tao. Instant space dragon sword slashed through the air. With a light puff, the lightning eagle that smashed over had its head sliced off by this sword. Chapter 9:23. The lightning liquid exploded and a large half of the lightning phoenix's body was teleported thousands of feet away by an external force. Then, its body was reconstructed and it returned to normal in just a breath. However, it looked dispirited and weak. Zhong Shou's sword not only broke its head, but it also injected threads of energy and sword energy, as well as Zhong Shou's martial path true intent into its body. This was why even if this lightning eagle borrowed the strength of others to avoid death, it was still heavily injured and wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. Zhong Shou's brows rose up, thinking to himself, what was this? Couldn't help but attack? Was it biased? Or was it unwilling to let these few God Realm lightning eagles be killed by him? He was too lazy to think about it. Since he could kill them once, then he could kill them a second time. A third time, what did he have to fear? His mind and intent weren't affected at all. Then, the third sword slashed across the sky. It was still 5 swords merged into one, but the sword aura was more complete and flawless. The absolute beginning longing that appeared on the sword was covered in scales and armor, looking real and lifelike. When the sword light flashed, all of the green lightning was swept away. The 4 lightning eagles flapped their wings and dodged in a maniacal manner. They didn't seem to be able to suppress heaven and earth like before. Zhong Shou laughed, filled with a mocking intent. His body used the 79 star Tao seeds to teleport through the air. With just one flash, he was in front of one of the lightning eagles. It was still one, but it was one of the 49 Dian numbers that had escaped. It was really sudden and without any signs, the sword exploded in the air. With a "poolah," the entire 100 miles of land pretty much stopped. The space seemed to be ripped apart by the black flames on the sword. Where the black light passed, the green lightning eagle under Zhong Shou's body was sliced open from the middle by a sword. Before the sword attack was able to rip apart the physical body and soul of the beast, it was already too late. Just like that, another strange force moved the green lightning eagle and reconstructed its body. However, this time a cold scoff spread out from the void. Arrogant! The voice was ice-cold, causing one's blood to freeze. 6 talismans suddenly charged down from the sky and shot into the bodies of the giant lightning eagles. It caused the aura of the 6 lightning eagles to explode. Red and white flames burned crazily, their beaks, iron claws, and even their iron feathers were filled with sharp energy. Zhong Shou used the dragon pellet Tao seed to flash a few times in the air and change his position. Frowning slightly, Xiao Chun immediately felt the pressure from the 6 thunder eagles increase exponentially. Not only did his imperial wind and imperial lightning ability increase, his speed had also increased by more than 2 times. He could also use the sky burning of the world of the lightning eagle. The 6 lightning eagles of the lightning eagle were Shou of the lightning. At this moment, he of the lightning eagle of the lightning eagle. Of the marrow of the blood of the blood of the curse to the peak. Threads of fresh blood seeped out from the corners of his eyes. Of it. Zhong Shouxin was extremely annoyed. This extreme pain, these 6 annoying lightning eagles. It caused his mood to be really restless and uneasy. He wanted to smash the sky into pieces and level the land. Only then would he be able to be at ease and have some peace. However, in his heart, he knew that he couldn't have such an annoyed mood. Taking in a few deep breaths, Zhong Shou forced himself to stop thinking. Nameless in his hand followed a weird sword path as it slashed through the air. The sword clashed with the claws and teeth of the lightning eagle, causing the lightning blaze thousand flash to clash with the sky-burning flame of the 6 lightning eagles. In an instant there were thousands of strikes. Wind and fire gathered, filling up the storm. The aura of the 6 lightning eagles was getting stronger and stronger. Zhong Shou's mind slowly calmed down. The series of intense battles caused him to be more focused than ever before. He finally forgot about the pain in his body. He didn't even bother about the 6 lightning eagles that pounced over. There was only the sword in his mind, and he was extremely focused on the sword. Standing proudly beside the nether jail, Zhong Shou didn't teleport anymore. He just waved the sword intent in his hand to go up against the seemingly endless lightning and fire power. One origin in. Within 100 feet, it was his unbreakable sword domain. The entire 3,000-mile region was filled with endless storms. Only the 100 feet around Zhong Shou slowly calmed down. There was no wind, no lightning flashing, it was no different from a normal place. That sword merger wasn't limited to the 9-9 long Ing sword. Cause and effect laws, life and death laws, fate laws, various Dao. 79 star Dao seeds, 37 imperial Dao dragon tooth swords could all be merged into it. At the start, he was still shaky, but as time went on, he became more and more familiar with it. He casually touched it and it was really easy, totally merging into the one origin in sword. Slowly, each sword that Zhong Shou slashed out caused the 6 lightning eagles to cry out in shock as they dodged. Each sword that slashed down would cause numerous eagle feathers to fall. Who knows how long they had been in the eye of the storm? Who knows how many times they had clashed with one another? That 100 feet unbreakable sword domain was crazily expanding. 1,000 feet. 10,000 feet. When it reached 9,739 feet, Zhong Shou's eyes suddenly opened. Numerous runes flashed and jumped in his blood eyes. He looked into the distance quietly. Even if they went all out, they were still unable to break through the sword domain. The flames slowly dissipated and the 6 lightning eagles were in a really bad state. At this moment, he only felt that it was a waste. If these lightning eagles could hold on for a little longer, his sword technique would definitely have a breakthrough. When the unbreakable sword domain covered 100,000 feet, there was even a 100% chance that he could step into the intermediate sword intent spirit realm. Unfortunately, looking at the situation, their auras were obviously much weaker. The effects of the talisman were already fading. The sky-burning sword that was burning slowly dimmed. It was obvious that it was getting weaker and weaker. Is it activating potential essence energy? That Saint Venerable is so stingy. When their potential was used up, their life essence was slowly running out. Naturally, they couldn't continue anymore. Even if there were still talismans landing, it wasn't enough to support these 6 lightning eagles to fight with him. However, I really don't know whether or not I should thank my sky-burning blood. If it wasn't for the sky-burning bloodline, if it wasn't for the 9 extreme death jail, even if he had the ability to go up against God Realm experts, he wouldn't be able to go up against these 6 lightning phoenixes. Even if his sword technique was really high, he wouldn't be able to support them. Spreading out his spiritual sense, Zhong Shou noticed that the nether jail abyss gate had returned to normal. The weird power that locked down the gate was nowhere to be seen. Only the spiritual sense suppression was still the same. Since that is the case, then it is time to end it. His spiritual sense wasn't pure and he couldn't focus on the sword anymore. Zhong Shou felt that the pain that he couldn't bear struck his eyes. It suddenly exploded out and he couldn't help but want to cry out in pain. Then, he broke out into a laugh. Zhong Shou waved his sleeves and 6 knife lights shot out. Shuttling through the void, the 6 gods' flying daggers instantly pierced through the heads of the 6 giant birds that were fleeing in fear in the distance. When the blood light exploded out, Zhong Shou's body totally disappeared from the nether jail gate. Chapter 924. At this moment, outside of the 9 Extreme Death Jail, within the Starfire Dust Formation, Lu Jian stood with his arms behind his back. His expression was really weird. He was a little angry, a little shocked, and also a little teasing. However, most of it was surprise. Lu Tianqing stood respectfully at the side and didn't speak. This extreme flame Saint Venerable was in his eyes. However, such a person didn't show his emotions on his face. If one wanted to use that to judge what he was thinking, one would be wrong. After keeping silent for a long while, Lu Jian suddenly burst out laughing. Tianqing, what do you think about this kid? Lu Tianqing thought about it for a moment, considering his words before asking. He is proud and has an unyielding will. This kid will definitely be unforgiving. Normal methods won't be able to shake his will. Unyielding? That evaluation is quite accurate. Lu Jian nodded slightly, a weird glow flashed in his eyes. He knew that the junior beside him was trying to say something. His will was firm. In other words, their sky-burning Lu family probably wouldn't be able to wipe away the hatred in his heart. Even if they forcefully closed it, they wouldn't be able to remove the crack. They had to consider the risks within. Lu Jian did not comment, acting like he did not understand the meaning behind those words. He smiled faintly. However, what I am asking about isn't his personality but his ability. He didn't collapse under such pressure and instead used it to train his sword path martial intent to improve his sword technique. This kid is really... Although he looked like he was in his 20s, calling himself an old man didn't sound right at all. It was like he couldn't find any words to evaluate him. Lu Jian thought about it for a moment before speaking once more. He is a top swordsman. I actually saw the secrets of the Tao on his body. In the future, it would be easy for him to reach the End Realm. This kind of junior was definitely not a piece of trash. I remember that when he was born, there were people to report back. He is a dual meridian body, a remnant soul body? Lu Tianqing's eyes shone and then he bowed. That's right. In Tianqing's opinion, there is no one in the same generation in the Lu clan who can compare to him. This Zhong Shou was not only not a piece of trash, but also a peerless talent. In his impression, there were not many people in this region who could be mentioned in the same breath as him in the past 1,000 years. There would be 1 or 2 peerless geniuses every 1,000 years. However, this Zhong Shou had the Lu family sky burning blood. Therefore, to them, the significance was different, as expected of the Saint Emperor's descendant. If that person knew about this, he would definitely be overjoyed. The lineage of Origin Flame has a successor. His words seemed to be praising, but when Lu Jian heard it, he shook his head and directly asked, "Are you trying to remind me that if this kid returns, would the Yenyuan bloodline be the strongest?" "Brat, don't try to be smart." Lu Tianqing's expression changed and his lips turned pale. He could vaguely feel that the scorching flame was directly piercing his soul. However, he gritted his teeth and did not beg for mercy. He remained silent. Lu Jian only glanced at him and didn't care. This old man has observed this child's situation. He had clearly awakened the 9-tailed sky fox bloodline and merged the 2 bloodlines into one. Oh right. A few days ago, the person who charged into the death jail alone was Hanyan's husband? In just 20 years, a God Realm cultivator is also a 9-tailed sky fox. That child Han Yen really has good eyesight. Speaking of which, she didn't do anything wrong and instead did something good? Lu Tianqing's brow furrowed and he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he opened his mouth. However, this is an exception. Our Lu family sky-burning bloodline is already tough to maintain. In recent years, no End-Realm Saint Venerables appeared to purify the bloodline. If everyone was like her and did whatever she wanted, I'm afraid my Lu clan will fall apart within 3,000 years. Be it the God-Beast bloodline or their Lu family sky-burning bloodline, they would all become diluted as time passed. Unless one's cultivation reached a certain realm, one would be able to purify it. or if someone advanced to the sky-burning bloodline. Only by tracing the bloodline power back could one benefit the entire race. However, 7,000 years ago, the sky-burning bloodline had reached the extreme. Even the new Saint Realm cultivators of the Lu family couldn't do anything about it. During these years, they could only barely maintain it. During these few years, it was showing signs of declining. This was why everyone who was listed in the Lu family direct bloodline register was highly valued by the Lu family. As for people like Lu Hanyan, they had high hopes for her. This was also the reason why Lu Hanyan was convicted. Moreover, that day, the few Saint Venerables were the ones who decided on Hanyan's punishment. If we overturn the case now, where will the dignity of the Lu family disciplinary hall and the few Saint Venerables go? That makes sense. Lu Juyan's expression didn't change at all. Instead, he asked, "Who are you speaking for? Which country ruler and hall venerables of our Lu family made you help them so much? What is the reason?" His tone was really calm, but it was really sharp. For someone like him, there was no need for him to scheme against others, nor did he need to waste his energy. He could just go straight to the point. In this world, there were very few things that could be hidden from him. No one dared to hide anything from him. It is country ruler Xianhua. Lu Tianqing's face was ashen white, but he didn't hide anything. Saint Venerable doesn't know that 10 years ago, my eldest grandson and country ruler Xuanhua's daughter were engaged. Today, the wedding can be completed. 20 years ago, country ruler Xianhua was the Lu family disciplinary hall venerate. Seeing that Lu Juyan didn't have any intentions, instead, he retracted the suppressive intent. He instantly heaved a sigh of relief and then opened his mouth. Although I have selfish intentions, my words are also fair. I don't dare to have any disrespectful thoughts towards Saint Venerable. Saint Venerable, please judge clearly. You indeed don't dare. Lu Juyan waved his sleeves and didn't care at all. His spiritual sense seemed to be focused on the death jail which had crossed the abyss gate and reached the 8th layer. His lips curled up. What a stubborn kid, how interesting. Then, in your opinion, how should we deal with this kid? Lu Tianqing raised his head when he heard this, and then his expression calmed down once more. After all, this person is the descendant of Yenyuan Saint Venerable. For the stability of our Lu family, we can't let him die in our hands. We also can't let him wander outside. Let's just leave him in the 8th layer and not bother about him. His tone was totally calm, but it was filled with a bone-chilling cold intent. The 8th layer, Nether Death Jail, was 100 times more dangerous than the Spirit Ocean Death Jail and took away one's life essence. Even if that kid could hold on 200 years later, he would turn into a pile of bones. Not bother about him? Then, we will do as you say. Lu Juyan laughed like he agreed with what Lu Tianqing said. His gaze was filled with deep meaning. However, you need to know that there is a situation that even I can't do anything about. At that time, you will have to bear the consequences. Lu Tianqing was startled and didn't understand what he meant. Then, he shook his head. All of a sudden, he didn't understand why Lu Juyan said those words. However, since this extreme flame Saint Venerable had already agreed to it, then the matter of his in-laws would have no future problems. To be continued. Chapter 925. If there are any accidents, I am naturally willing to take responsibility. Thinking about it, what Lu Juyan said was something that even an End-Realm Saint Venerable like him couldn't do anything about. It was just other End-Realms helping to save Zhong Shou from the death jail. With the talent that this kid showed, and the fact that he had End-Realm cultivators helping him, that wasn't impossible. However, at that time, so what if he had to take responsibility for what he did? Looking out at the many positions in the Lu family, there was no position worse than the 9 extreme death jail. Was he going to throw Lu Tianqing into the 9th layer of the death jail that was used to restrain Saint Realm cultivators? As for Zhongsho, just the fact that he colluded with an enemy was enough to prevent him from returning to the Lu family. There definitely wouldn't be any changes to the case that year. Now that someone had insulted them, this extreme flame Saint Venerable and even the entire Lu family had to react. Moreover, in this world, there were only a handful of people who could beat Juyin and not be afraid of offending the Lu family. Is that so? At that time, you need to remember these words. Lu Juyin's lips twitched like he didn't want to continue talking to Lu Tianqing about this matter. He looked down through the void towards the 8th layer. Outside the nether jail abyss gate and the storm, there was an armored person standing there. This person was with Zhongsho, and if it was as expected, he should be his subordinate. A peak celestial realm who was half a step into the saint realm. For some reason, he paid attention to him. Why do I feel that this person's aura is a little familiar? Thinking about it, Lu Juyin knew the reason. He then smiled. So, it is him. This child had finally escaped from the sea of bitterness, but she had to come running back. Why did he do that? It seems like he is really stubborn. Lu Tianqing was slightly startled and then came back to his senses. His eyes were slightly dark and he was deep in thought. It should be Lu Wubing. This kid was sent away by Xuanya country ruler to follow Lu Wushuang, and now, he is beside Zhongsho. Did he change sides? I heard that he followed Lu Wushuang to kill enemies, and in the end, Lu Wushuang died to the Buddhist faction. Lu Wubing's whereabouts are unknown. Logically speaking, he should be dead. At this point, his face was already filled with doubt. Lu Wubing didn't die and instead, he submitted to Zhongsho. Then, was Lu Wushuang's death related to Zhongsho? Soon after, he laughed hoarsely. He was possessed. It didn't matter whether it was related or not. As long as the various country rulers and elders in the Saint dynasty agreed, it would be fine. Killing a member of the direct bloodline was another crime. Lu Wushuang is dead? What a pity! Juyin sighed as if he did not understand the meaning behind Lu Tianqing's words. Back then, this old man thought highly of that little fellow. It's really not easy for someone from a branch family to reach such a level. It is indeed a pity. It is said that after Lu Wushuang died, Emperor Xuanya went into seclusion for 10 days and nights. Lu Tianqing nodded slightly, but his eyes were like a poisonous snake as he stared at the person beside the gate of the nether prison. The killing intent in his eyes surged, but he restrained it. Forget it, if he killed him, he would be able to die a quick death. Why not let this kid be tortured in this spirit ocean death jail? It was different from dozens of years ago. Lu Wubing's cultivation was high enough, and he would be able to last for a few more days in this spirit ocean death jail. Thinking about it, Lu Tianqing stopped worrying and said, Saint Venerable, I am worried about something. This Zhongsho has entered the 8th layer, so do we need to move Lu Hanyan to another place? Move to another place? Lu Juyin turned his head and looked deeply at the red-robed old man behind him. He then shook his head. Since Hanyan gave birth to this kid, the two of them have not met. This method is a little heartless. There is no need for that. Saint Venerable, I am just worried that there will be some unexpected changes. After all, Lu Hanyan is the grandson of that person, the descendant of Yenyuan Saint Venerable. Who knows what methods he has to help this kid escape? Lu Tianqing wanted to persuade him once more, but Lu Juyin waved his hand. There is no need to worry. I am still hoping for this kid to head to the 9th layer of the death jail. I will deal with this matter. The moment he heard this, Lu Tianqing was at ease. Then, he was filled with questions. Listening to Juyin's words, he seemed to be interested in Zhongsho and was looking forward to it. He had been lonely for 10,000 years. He had found a new toy and wasn't willing to let it go? He looked at Lu Juyin's back in shock. The latter said excitedly, Who is guarding the entrance to the 9th layer? And that formless shadow demon? This kid has unlimited potential and is just a step away from the sword intent spirit realm. That shadow demon probably won't be able to block him. While speaking, he split open the space and stepped in. Lu Tianqing's brow rose up. After guarding the death jail for so long, this was the first time he saw Lu Juyan so excited. After entering the 8th layer, Zhong Shou felt that the name Nether Jail was really fitting. As expected, this place was filled with death energy. Everything one could see was a white scene. If he didn't know that this place was just one of the 9 layers of the Lu family death jail. If this place was the Netherworld, Zhong Shou would have believed that it was the Netherworld. The moment he stepped in, Zhong Shou felt that the true essence in his body started to weaken. Zhong Shou didn't hesitate to activate Lin Xuanshuang's Source Life Spirit Breathing technique. His world-shocking spiritual art was slowly being perfected. However, at this moment, it couldn't be compared to this End Realm Endless Life technique, which was useful in the Nether Jail. In the end, he felt his body warm up and recover a lot. Not only is the death energy invasion, but it is also stealing life force. 1 day here consumes 10 days of lifespan. In other words, 20 years was 200 years of lifespan. Zhong Shou couldn't help but clench his fists, his fingernails digging deep into his flesh. He forced himself not to think about it and looked around. I wonder what the forbidden technique of this region is? Lu Wubing didn't come to this world, and the outside world can't find out about the situation here. Xian Shuang's master also didn't tell me about it. He thought about it while observing. Moments later, Zhong Shou was surprised. The prison realm was a lot smaller than he had imagined. Looking at the sky, this world was less than 1/10 of the Spirit Ocean Death Jail. Using the instant space Dao Seed, in just 4 to 6 hours, he could go from the south of the sky to the north of the earth. In other words, to search for people in this world was much easier than he had expected. However, since it was called the Nether Jail and was ranked as the 8th layer of the 9 Extreme Death Jail, this place was extremely dangerous. Then, this world should be extremely dangerous. This jail restriction should be stronger than the Spirit Ocean Death Jail. Thinking about that, Zhong Shou's heart couldn't help but jump. Anticipation, excitement, his emotions were really complicated. A moment later, he barely suppressed them. He waved his sleeves and wanted to release all the Saint Fire Silver Ants. Chapter 926. That's not right. The dangers in this world are unknown, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake. If these silver ants spread out, even my star Dao Seed might not be able to protect them. Zhong Shou took in a deep breath and then retracted his thoughts of using these Saint Fire Silver Ants to explore. Actually, he had already faced many dangers in the 6th and 7th layers. It was also because of Zhong Shou's 79 instant space dragon pellets that the silver ants were able to escape and be safe. He still didn't know what the restrictions in this prison were, and what mysteries there were. Just the number of people who were imprisoned in this prison was enough to cause fear in one's heart. Based on what Lu Wubing said, only the most evil people in the Lu family or those who committed unforgivable crimes would be locked up here. Just thinking about it, one would know that there were many experts here. Zhong Shou first probed as he stepped into the air. When he reached this place, it was as calm as before. There is no primordial magnetic power, and there are no restrictions in the surroundings. This place doesn't allow people to travel in the void. However, although there were no restrictions here, the spiritual energy here was extremely strong. The laws and Dao laws were really tight and there were no loopholes to be exploited. In other words, in other worlds, he could instantly travel dozens of miles. In this place, at most he could travel 10 miles. As for the instant space dragon pellet, he could probably only teleport within 100 miles. Also, this death energy was a little too thick. It was like a maggot in one's bones, a thread that wrapped around one's soul. Zhong Shou frowned. A 4-foot blood sword slid out from his sleeves. Instantly, large amounts of death energy gathered and gathered on the sword. There seemed to be a vast Yin river flowing 100,000 feet around him. This was the Styx River Death Sword. The death energy couldn't be dissipated and chased away, so why not use it for himself? He used the death energy to travel forwards without much effort. Roughly 10 minutes later, Zhong Shou was startled. In the distance, there were dozens of thousands of feet tall metal frames, standing in a neat row in the distance. Within the iron frames, there were a few people pinned onto them. Using the instant space dragon pellet, Zhong Shou flashed over. His eyes were filled with shock. The people who were nailed to the metal crosses were all deity realm cultivators. 2 of them had clearly reached the peak of the god realm. Then, he came to a realization. He found it strange. There might be an exit on the 9th floor. Then why would the Lu family sinner above the god realm be sent to the 8th level of the death jail? Wouldn't it be easier for him to reach the 9th level? Only then did he realize that these people were no longer free range. Instead, he was nailed down and sealed, unable to be free. Looking at the iron frames, it was obvious that they were continuously absorbing the true essence and vital energy of the God Realm cultivator and transferring it to other places. Vaguely, it was a branch of a huge spiritual array. Could it be that the forbidden formation of the 9 extreme death prison is maintained by extracting the vital essence and blood of these cultivators? Thinking about it, he felt that something was amiss. Even if there were more than a few hundred immortal state warriors, it would be difficult to support such a large formation. These people should just be supplemental on the dozen or so metal racks. Most of the deity realm cultivators were on the verge of death and extremely weak. Looking at Zhong Shou who flew over, they closed their eyes once more and didn't bother about him. However, there was a rough-looking man with messy hair who sized up Zhong Shou with a weird look. Then, he broke out into a laugh. Weird. I have been trapped in the 8th level of the death jail, and no one has entered for hundreds of years. Who knew that during these 2 years I would see a few new faces? This fellow shouldn't be over 40 and his cultivation is only at the celestial realm. He was actually able to come down. Could it be that the 6 azure thunder eagles outside have already been roasted and eaten by someone? It was like he was talking to himself, but also like he was talking to the God Realm cultivators on the rack. However, no one replied. Zhong Shou was really interested in the person in front of him. However, at this moment, he was impatient and wanted to search for Lu Hanyan and Zhong Weiran. He shook his head and was about to leave. However, with a thought, Zhong Shou stopped. Senior, do you know Lu Hanyan? Lu Hanyan? That brute was stunned and then smiled. I know a little. She is the daughter of the sky-burning Saint Emperor, right? The little princess of the sky-burning Lu family? However, her situation isn't good. Zhong Shou's eyes flashed and he continued to ask, then, do you know where she is now? Peak God Realm, one's spiritual sense could cover 10,000 miles. Even in this death jail, it was restricted, but it could still reach thousands of miles. He also had many indiscernible abilities, so this person might know where Lu Hanyan was. Of course, that person instinctively opened his mouth to reply. Then, his eyes were filled with confusion and he shook his head. I am not sure, there is nothing that I don't know about this 8th level. I remember her name, but I don't know where she is or if she has been moved to the 9th level. 9th level? Zhong Shoxin's heart sunk, it was ice cold. Why was she moved to the 9th level? If that was the case, then what should he do? He already found it tough to deal with the green lightning eagles on the 8th level. What was the strength of the person guarding the entrance to the 9th level? Late God Realm or Peak God Realm? Then, he consoled himself that this person didn't know, so his mother might not have been moved to the 9th level. He also felt that something wasn't right. However, he couldn't think of what was wrong. Wu Yazi's eyes were filled with doubt. He didn't care anymore, smiling towards Zhong Shou. Although you are celestial realm, I see that your jade-skinned celestial body is filled with clear energy. Just your physical body is no weaker than God realm. Since you can enter the 8th level, you must be really skilled. However, to enter the 9th level, you might not be able to do so. Why don't you let me out and I can bring you down? I just don't know if you have the ability to do so. The moment he said this, the cultivators on the iron frames all opened their eyes and looked towards Zhongsho. Zhongsho's face was really calm and he wasn't moved by his words. He continued to ask, then, Senior, have you heard of Zhong Weiran? Where is the person who charged into the nether jail in recent years? When Wu Yazi heard that, he laughed out loud. Naturally, I know. However, I need you to let me out first before I can tell you. Zhongsho scoffed and looked closely at the restrictions on the iron frames. In his last life, he had studied the formation path for a period of time to find a chance to break through. However, after coming to this life, as he improved too quickly, maintaining the stability of his foundations exhausted him. This was why he placed this skill down and focused on one path. However, in the cultivation path, if one was good, then all would be good. If one reached the peak of one method, naturally one would be able to comprehend others. Looking at it now, he knew that this restriction was indeed problematic. Not only were the God Realm cultivators on the iron frames finding it difficult to break, even if outsiders wanted to save them, it wouldn't be easy. Chapter 9:27. These giant iron frames were connected to the restrictions of the 9 extreme death jail. To save this person, apart from the restrictions that were tough to break, he would have to suffer the backlash of the death jail restrictions. However, if he really wanted to help, he had some confidence. He just needed to pay a price for it. However, Samuraim's gaze was cold and solemn, expressionless as he looked at the people on the iron frames. Just now when he spoke, Wu Yazi didn't react much and his reaction was normal. However, the remaining dozen or so people all faintly revealed blank expressions. Be it the name Zhong Weiran or the location of the person who entered the 9 extreme death jail, they didn't know anything about it. Since these people didn't know, then how did Wu Yazi find out? This person's words weren't true at all. He risked being heavily injured to let this person out. It was okay if he didn't keep his promise, but if he went against him and killed him, then it would be too late for him to regret. Then, he looked at the countless bones beneath Wu Yazi's metal frame. Most of them were beast bones. Normal beasts couldn't survive in this death jail, so most of them were nether beasts and natural variant. Among them, there were dozens of human bones. Their bones were close to jade, so when they were born, they would have become celestial bodies. Zhong Shoshin instantly became more and more wary. It isn't difficult to break the restrictions. I wonder if Senior is willing to make an oath? Heart Source Oath. I know about the seal, and can help you draw the talismans and make the seals. When Wu Yazi heard the first few words, he was delighted. However, when he heard the last 4 words, he went silent. The Heart Source Oath was the most important oath a cultivator could make. The seal would directly enter the soul core. If one couldn't, then it would directly destroy one's foundations. One could forget about keeping one's cultivation in the future. Zhongsho looked at his expression and knew what he was planning. After scoffing coldly, he didn't bother anymore. He still didn't know the details of the 8th layer. If it was as Wu Yazi said, then he needed to save some strength to try to charge into the 9th layer. At this moment, how would he be willing to waste so much effort to save someone who had nothing to do with him and had nefarious intentions? However, just as he was about to use the instant space dragon pellet to tear open space and leave, Wu Yazi laughed. Wu Yazi laughed. I didn't want to use force. But since you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me. I've been trapped here for hundreds of years. I'm so lonely and lack of food. Looking at your bones and muscles, your chi and blood must be pure and delicious. With you accompanying me, I'm sure my days will be much better. As he spoke, Zhong Shou sensed a magnetic force that was tens of thousands of times stronger than before suddenly appearing in the air. Even time and space were temporarily sealed, and Zhong Shou's figure was forcefully sucked towards the iron frame. Zhong Shou narrowed his eyes and curled his lips in disdain. Just like before, with a thought, the Star Dao seed was activated. With a flash, he moved away from his original position. His cultivation had reached the immortal realm, and Lin Xuanxuang had taught him the source life-breathing technique, as well as Tsang Shengdao's myriad Dao ritual Xian Fa Kong 7 words true technique. These instant space dragon pellets were becoming harder and harder to restrict. This Wu Yazi grasped the magnetism technique and also had the ability to seal time and space. To other cultivators it might be fatal. However, to Zhong Shou, it wasn't worth a mention. Breaking away from the magnetic binding, Zhong Shou directly teleported 10 miles away and appeared. Wu Yazi was startled when he saw this, and then his expression turned dark and sunken. He knew that he couldn't restrict Zhong Shou's movement technique, so there was nothing he could do. He didn't do anything, only scoffing coldly, "What an instant space movement technique. No wonder those 6 lightning eagles couldn't stop you." However, the moment he said these words, Zhong Shou's face twisted in pain. Wu Yazi's eyes lit up, and then he laughed out loud. "So you just entered the nether jail. This technique isn't something that the 7th layer of the Spirit Ocean Death Jail can compare to. Come and accompany me." At this moment, Zhong Shou's entire body felt unbearably hot. Energy flowed in reverse. The blood spirit curse power started to activate the sky-burning bloodline once more. His eyes were still filled with pain, but it was 20 to 30% stronger than when he was in the 7th layer. At this moment, what made him feel unbearable and annoyed was within his soul. The ice-cold death power was corroding his soul, as well as the power of the forbidden technique. It nearly froze his soul, like billions of needles stabbing into it, causing pain everywhere. So this 8th layer death jail forbidden technique directly attacks the soul. If one doesn't resist, one will slowly go numb, unable to think, and slowly lose consciousness. However, one can still feel this extreme pain. Once one's life energy is used up, one's soul will be destroyed. Even if one can reincarnate, they will be a bug, extremely vicious. However, the forbidden technique wasn't much, just a little stronger than the 7th layer. However, when it acted up in his eyes and soul at the same time, it made him feel so much pain that he wished he was dead. He was close to going crazy, and he felt really annoyed. Coincidentally, at this moment, the magnetism power that Wu Yazi used was 10 miles away and forcefully sucked him in. A giant strength that could rip apart normal God realm cultivators dragged him towards the iron frame. Zhong Shou laughed coldly. He was already annoyed and now he was even more furious. He was too lazy to dodge, following the suction force and slashing down like a meteor. The underworld river announced his death, and the underworld gate behind him opened. Large amounts of death power surged out. The sword light slashed down, filling up heaven and earth. It was a simple sword, but it had the strength to split heaven and earth into two. Out of the 79 great Tao stars that revolved around it, a quarter of them began to flicker with a faint light. It was one. Tao as one. He merged the various Tao laws he grasped with the Styx River Death sword into one sword. At the start, Wu Yazi laughed in disdain, but then his expression changed. The magnetism power changed from sucking to pushing. However, it was unable to block and was easily broken apart by the sword's shadow. Then, it slashed onto the iron frame, the sword energy and sword formation powers clashing and entering a stalemate. Just as Wu Yazi heaved a sigh of relief, he saw a black flame burn on the sword. It actually pierced through the heavy restrictions and directly slashed into his head, directly splitting it into two. Luckily, at this moment, the power of the restrictions gathered. The person who used the sword still had some rationality left. Before the sword light ended, it retracted and avoided the counterattack of the restrictions. Wu Yazi recovered his head in the blink of an eye. However, his face was ashen white, devoid of blood. He was still in shock as he looked at the teen in front of him with a weird expression. Sword intent spirit realm. What a sharp sword. It wasn't far from the intermediate spirit realm. This kid was actually able to break through the seal. He could go up against God Realm experts and use the Black Flame Death power to increase his combat strength. All of a sudden, he didn't dare to say anything. Although it was painful to be pinned to the iron frame, it was far better than having his soul destroyed. He guessed that this kid didn't just rely on the space movement technique to enter the 8th layer. Those 6 green thunder eagles were most likely dead as well. After Zhong Shou's sword, he felt his rage dissipate and his heart calm down. To be continued. Chapter 928. After that sword, Zhong Shou felt his rage dissipate. His mind calmed down and he slowly got used to this technique. Moments later, he gave out a self-mocking laugh. So painful that I don't want to die, I actually wish that I could just die right away. At that moment, he really wanted to smash his own head with a finger. Taking in a deep breath, Zhong Shou thought back to Lu Hanyan. His mother had lived here for 20 years. Was he unable to take it in such a short amount of time? As for this Wu Yazi, he was really annoying. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as Zhong Shou looked towards the iron frame that Wu Yazi was on. With just a single glance, he gave up on the idea of killing him. There was no need to take the risk to break the restrictions. Moreover, letting this person suffer torture was far better than killing him. Sky Burning Flame, so you are a direct bloodline descendant of the Lu family. This voice spread out from another direction. It was really casual and calm. Zhong Shou looked out and his pupils constricted. Where he looked was a scholarly middle-aged man on the iron frame on the right. There were 2 peak God Realm experts here and Wu Yazi was one of them. The person in front of him was the other. You are so young and your sword skills are so high. Your sky-burning blood is really pure. I've seen many outstanding talents, but none of them can compare to you. It seems like your position in the Lu family isn't low. Why did you sneak into the 9 Extreme Death Jail? What is there in the jail to attract such a talent like you? Zhong Shou shook his head. His matter had nothing to do with this person, so why bother talking to him? Since he was in the Nether Jail, he didn't want to waste a single moment. Following this, the middle-aged man laughed. With your strength, you are at least one of the princes of the Lu family. If you want to enter the jail, you can do it openly. The sky-burning Saint Dynasty won't stop you. Why do you need to ask Wu Yazi? Oh right, you are the son of Lu Hanyan, and you came to find your mother, right? She was truly out of the ordinary. She had only been playing for over 20 years. Hanyan probably wouldn't have thought that in just 20 years, her son would have the ability to enter the 8th level to find her. Zhong Shou looked at him in astonishment. The middle-aged man smiled and shook his head. I know your mother and we have some relations, but we are not close. I don't know the whereabouts of Princess Hanyan. However, if you are willing to help me, I can make a heart oath. I will help you until this death jail matter ends. Zhong Shou raised his eyebrows. Judging by the way this person spoke, he was much more trustworthy than Wu Yazi. However, after thinking about it for a moment, he shook his head. Junior still needs time to think about it. When the middle-aged man heard this, he understood that this sentence was a tactful rejection. He didn't say anything else. Instead, he sighed and closed his eyes again. Zhong Shou didn't pay much attention to it. He used void evasion and left. In just a moment, he was dozens of miles away. He continued to spread out his divine perception to search the area. Along the way, they also discovered quite a few things that looked like crosses. However, the Lu family's restrictions weren't set in stone. Crosses weren't commonly seen. Those who locked them up were often God realm cultivators. There were just over 100 of them, and they were spread all over the place. There were also many other stone platforms like the previous few levels. Some were suppressed by iron towers, and some were simply metal cages, trapping people inside. Although these people weren't God realm, their true essence and vital energy were being sucked out. Most of them were in pain, much more strenuous than those God realm cultivators. Most of them had one foot in the grave and couldn't hold on for much longer. There were even some who didn't have any protection at all. They were just tossed here and treated as food for those natural variants. The more he saw, the more cold Zhong Shou felt and the more anxious he became. He didn't care about the consumption of true essence, using the instant space dragon pellet to travel around the death jail and search tirelessly. From south to north, from east to west, he didn't let go of any inch. However, when 14 days passed, Zhong Shou was in despair. Why can't I find her? I've already searched this 30,000-kilometer area twice. I didn't miss out on any inch of land, even the underground. Was it really as Wu Yazi said, that mother was sent to the 9th layer? Zhong Shou was at a loss as he looked at his sleeves where there were dozens of mutated beast pellets. They were his gains from this layer of the death jail. He had gone through dozens of dangerous battles. There were even a few times when he was nearly surrounded by natural variants. The natural variants above God realm were no different from humans. Although they were still controlled by the vengeful energy, they knew how to work with other beasts. This was why, although these natural variants weren't as strong as him, however, they nearly caused Zhong Shou to die. He had used all of his strength to barely escape from the calamity. These mutated beast pellets were Zhong Shou's gains. There were only a few that Hanshi could use. However, these beast pellets above God realm could merge into the soul ocean void space like the instant space dragon pellet and become one of the star Dao seed. If this was in the past, Zhong Shou would be delighted to have such gains. However, at this moment, he was feeling really down and his chest was really cold. Also, as the days went on, it acted up more and more frequently and the pain increased. It caused him to be really dizzy and distracted as he walked in the void. When he came back to his senses, he was already standing at the center of the nether jail. Unknowingly, he had already walked here. There was a black mist in front of him. Not only was he unable to see, but even the illusionary heart mirror couldn't shine through. Thick space spiritual energy surged in the mist. Apart from that, he could also sense a strong aura within it. Samuraim's light retracted. He had come to this place dozens of times during these dozens of days. He guessed that it was most probably the abyss gate of the 9th layer that he hadn't entered. With his mind in a blur, he most probably instinctively headed here. Then, Zhong Shou broke out into a laugh, thinking that it seemed like he had to make a trip to the 9th layer in the end. The moment he made up his mind, Zhong Shou sat cross-legged 100 miles away from the black mist without being arrogant or rash. During these dozens of days, he didn't care about the consumption of energy and went through dozens of tough battles. Caused his source to be really weak. To try to enter the 9th layer and fight with the person in the black mist, he had to recover to his best state. He swallowed a few spiritual pills, bearing with the bone-deep pain, closing his eyes and adjusting his breathing. A full 24 hours later, Zhong Shou woke up. Once again, he used the illusionary heart mirror to replace his eyes. He suddenly felt something and controlled the illusionary heart mirror to look to the side. A few thousand feet away, there was a woman around 30 with white hair covering her face. It was tied to a huge tree by vines as thick as a child's arm. Hundreds of crimson hummingbirds flew over and landed on the woman's body. They used their beaks to peck. Each peck could tear off a piece of flesh. Chapter 929. The woman couldn't fight back at all, allowing these finger-sized red hummingbirds to peck her body. She was trapped by the wooden vines and couldn't move at all. Her heart was really calm and there were no fluctuations in her soul. Zhong Shou was startled when he saw this. Before he entered a meditative state, his eyes were only focused on that 100-mile black mist. He didn't notice the woman who was inches away from him. If it wasn't for the red hummingbirds flying over and waking him up, he probably wouldn't have noticed her even when he left. Seeing that the woman was covered in injuries, he couldn't help but laugh. Zhong Shou frowned and waved his sleeves. Hundreds of sword energy instantly exploded out, causing those red hummingbirds to fall. In the distance, there were more red hummingbirds who rushed over. They were all shocked by Zhong Shou's sharp sword intent. All of them screamed out and fled. At this moment, the woman finally raised her head in shock. Her white hair moved without wind and was tied behind her head. She looked at Zhong Shou and her eyes were filled with confusion. Then, she smiled. "Thank you, little brother. These birds are really annoying, and I have no way to deal with them. Thanks to you, I can finally have a peaceful day today." Zhong Shou was stunned once more, only feeling that although this girl was middle-aged, she was still young. Although she was middle-aged, be it her looks or aura, she was a top pick. She was also a little familiar, like she was similar to someone in his memory. However, he couldn't recall who it was. The sky-burning Lu family had an intense power struggle, and they often conquered many worlds. However, there were very few good people in this 9 extreme death jail. However, for some reason, Zhong Shou felt close to the girl in front of him, like they were connected by blood. Since he noticed her, he didn't have any wary thoughts. Was it? A thought flashed in his mind like a spark. However, it instantly disappeared. Thinking back, he couldn't recall anything. Zhong Shou was stunned for a moment before his eyes regained focus. Thinking about it, numerous sword lights shone around Zhong Shou's body and charged in all directions. 37 Dao exterminating dragon tooth swords formed a sword formation in 1,000th of a second. Strands of sharp sword energy swept out and killed the crimson hummingbirds one by one. For some reason, he wanted to do something for the woman in front of him. For some reason, he hated these red hummingbirds to the core. Since she said that this group of evil creatures was annoying, then he would kill them all on her behalf. Seeing this, the woman couldn't help but show a grateful expression. "Many thanks, but little brother shouldn't waste your energy. These scarlet hummingbirds were raised here by someone who wanted to make things difficult for me. Even if you kill them all, there will definitely be more after a day or two. Not only will you not be able to help me, but you will also make that person angry at you." Zhong Shou frowned. Zhong Shou was never afraid of venting his anger on others. However, after thinking about it carefully, he still withdrew the sword formation. Before finding Lu Hanyan, he really didn't want to create unnecessary trouble. However, he felt that he had let this woman down, and his gaze wandered. The giant tree in front of him wasn't naturally born, its roots were connected to the restrictions of the death jail. There were all sorts of weird items used to restrain the Lu family sinners. Zhong Shou had seen many of them and he wasn't surprised. However, when he looked at the woman, the ends of her white hair actually pierced into the tree trunk. Zhong Shou's eyes were filled with praise. "You are using this tree to cultivate?" "That's right." The woman smiled. "My essence blood is sucked out every day. If I don't get some back to compensate myself, I would have turned into a skeleton in this jail. Moreover, I have unfulfilled wishes. If I don't cultivate to increase my lifespan, I won't be able to see my husband and son." A weird expression appeared in her eyes. She didn't know why she was saying such things to Zhong Shou. Maybe she had been lonely for too long and this teen in front of her felt too close to her. As he spoke, the white hair that was more than 3 feet long appeared. In the blink of an eye, all of them turned from pale white to black. The woman's ashen white face regained its rosiness and she became more and more beautiful. The wounds caused by the red hummingbirds instantly recovered and she was filled with life. Life and death withering technique. Zhong Shou was shocked. With just one look, He knew the technique that the woman used. The only difference was that this woman used another method, using the tree to reverse the withering. She hid her own life force into the giant tree. When she needed it, she would draw it back. She also used the 3,000 strands of hair to snatch vital energy and essence energy from the restrictions. He felt weird. He remembered that this technique was a product of the cloud world and was a secret technique of the Dowling sect. How did this woman know how to use it? You recognize it? The woman exclaimed and then nodded. That's right. Someone like you must be really knowledgeable. It isn't surprising that you have been to the cloud world. She reminded, I don't know why you are here, but looking at the situation, you are heading to the 9th layer. I think you shouldn't force your way in. Remember that the 8th layer is a formless god demon that the Lu family Yenyuan Saint Venerable caught. He set the 10,000-year slave contract and suppressed it here. It was said that at that time, the demon was just a step away from the saint realm. When he heard the words formless god demon, Zhong Shou felt that it was familiar. Even when she mentioned saint realm, he didn't pay much attention to it. Taking in a deep breath, Samuraim's eyes lit up. As expected, there were memories in his mind. However, they came from the 9-tailed sky fox bloodline. Formless god demon, is that shadow god? No. Is it the shadow demon race? That's right. Anyone from the shadow god race who reaches god realm would be formless and hard to track. The woman answered curiously as she looked at Zhong Shou. Her face was filled with joy that she couldn't suppress. Zhong Shou was indeed surprised and felt his heart relax. If it was any other peak god realm, he would definitely die. However, he didn't fear the shadow demon race, even if it was a true saint realm. The thousands of ancestors of the Sky Fox race sacrificed themselves to craft a god artifact to defend against the shadow demons during the Cloud Desolate era. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were their nemesis, especially when they were wary. Speaking of which, if it was really as the woman said, then he had a 90% chance of entering the 9th layer. Even if he couldn't defeat the enemy, he should be able to protect himself. He felt grateful. Zhong Shou looked at the wooden vines, his heart filled with unwillingness. After hesitating slightly, he said resolutely, with my sword technique, I should be able to slash open the restrictions. Do you need me to save you? Dozens of days ago, Zhong Shou didn't even consider the peak god realm expert. However, towards this woman, Zhong Shou instinctively didn't want her to be tortured. The woman was slightly surprised and then shook her head. The Lu family laws have their own rules. Because I made a mistake, I was locked up in the 6th layer for 2,000 years. However, if I was in the 8th layer, it would be reduced to 40 years. If I break out now, it would be much easier, but all my efforts would be wasted. She said, Little brother, you are a good person, but you don't have to worry about me. No matter what, I will hold on until the end of my sentence. My life goal is to see my kid. Why would I care about a mere forbidden technique here? Zhong Shou was in a daze and asked, Can I know Senior's name? The woman smiled. You don't have to call me Senior. Actually, I am not that old, just call me Lu Hanyan. Chapter 931. Zhong Shou was in a daze and continued to ask, Can Junior know Senior's name? The girl smiled. You don't have to call me Senior. I am actually not that old, just call me Lu Hanyan. Lu Hanyan? Zhong Shou only felt his soul explode, like thunder rumbling. However, he was confused and thought about who Lu Hanyan was. Did he know her? His mind was in a daze for a moment before he came back to his senses. No. This was seeing and knowing. The moment such a thought rose up, it disappeared back into his heart lake without a single ripple. He thought about what the girl was saying and what her name was. Why couldn't he remember it? Was it because of the prison restriction technique and the eye that affected his vision? Or was there something missing in his memory? At this moment, he was too embarrassed to ask any more. Zhong Shou could only nod his head. I understand. Looking into his body, he felt that his meridians were flowing in the opposite direction and his blood was flowing in reverse. Luckily, his true chi and soul power had recovered to their peak. After a day of recuperation, his essence chi had mostly recovered. He was originally planning to rest here for a while. However, since the Abyss Gate was guarded by a formless god demon, then there was no need for that. He didn't recognize this girl and didn't know about her past. However, he instinctively believed what she said. Taking in a deep breath, Zhong Shou was prepared to step into the black mist. The girl persuaded, "Little brother, that formless god demon is vicious and cruel. I have been here for 20 years and have seen a few people who entered, but they all ended up in a tragic state. Your cultivation is slightly weak, and if you enter, your life will be in danger. Can you not go?" Zhong Shoxin felt warmth in his heart and then he shook his head. Just like how this girl wasn't willing to escape from the restrictions, he had a reason to forcefully charge into the 9th layer of the death jail. Without saying anything more, Zhong Shou's body flashed and he was 10 miles away. In front of the black mist, he hesitated for a moment before walking in. The aura within the mist became colder and colder. Not only was the death energy here so thick that it was close to physical form. Within the mist, there was a power that could bewitch one's mind. If one looked at it with their eyes, they would definitely see illusions. However, Zhong Shou was currently using the illusionary heart mirror and wasn't affected by the illusionary power. Even if he spread out his divine sense, there would still be mistake. Under the illumination of the clear and cold mirror light, everything in this place had nowhere to hide. Walking towards the center of the fog, Zhong Shou had just taken a few steps when he heard a burst of laughter. His voice was mournful and strange, shaking his eardrums. Just as Zhong Shouxin was on high alert, he saw a beam of sword light suddenly slash down from afar. His aura was vast and majestic. It was as if a giant mountain was pressing down, and it was impossible to resist. God Realm Peak? Zhong Shou subconsciously wanted to dodge the attack. However, he immediately bit the tip of his tongue and advanced instead of retreating. His body flashed and the nameless sword in his hand pierced forwards. If he couldn't withstand this sword, then he would die. Along with a series of sword light and weapon energy clashing, there was a loud sound. Zhong Shou's body instantly flew back 200 feet. He waved his hand and the One Origin Soul sword left his soul ocean and appeared beside him. Using the 9 long Ing swords returned to one true art, in a breath, he slashed out hundreds of swords. It blocked all the energy and spells that were chasing over from 100 feet away. The 37 Imperial Dao Dragon Tooth swords were spread out 100 feet away. The sword formation was formed and the entire 10,000 feet of land was instantly filled with sword energy. At this moment, Zhong Shou finally saw the situation in front of him clearly. It was a dozen or so cultivators with numb expressions. They were currently surrounding him. Apart from their eyes being stunned, they were no different from God Realm cultivators. Zhong Shou didn't panic, instead, his eyes were filled with a cold and disdainful intent. This should be the shadow puppet. The shadow demon destroyed its mind and soul, controlling it and turning it into a puppet. However, such a puppet with no mind was unable to use the Tao laws it grasped when it was alive. Rather than God Realm, it was better to say that it was a celestial realm cultivator with stronger true chi. This was why, although there were dozens of them, in his eyes, they weren't worth mentioning. What he cared about was where the sword light came from. That sword wasn't as strong as what he saw. Everything was just an illusion. The formless god demon could influence his thoughts and make him think that way. However, when they truly clashed, the difference couldn't be hidden from others. Actually, the illusionary heart mirror had reflected the truth of everything into his sea of consciousness. However, the formless god demon went around it and directly attacked his soul. Maybe it knew that his mind was firm and normal methods wouldn't be able to shake it. Thus, the shadow demon had used its laughter to make him wary, creating an opportunity for him to take advantage of. Then, it directly entered his mind to create the illusion of that shocking sword. Just now, he only needed to instinctively dodge, and he would have fallen into the trap that the formless god-demon had set up. However, at this moment, although he had removed the god realm shadow demon's methods, he didn't feel relaxed at all. However, he did not relax in the slightest. Instead, he became even more cautious. This shadow demon not only had amazing abilities, but its methods were also really good. It entered every hole and was tough to defend against. In the next instance, he saw a teen with a red mole at the center of his brows walk over from the mist. He looked at Zhong Shou and then at the green mirror in confusion. Only then did he say with a weird expression, "It is the aura of the sky burning blood. You are the Lu family young master, one of the Saint Dynasty princes? Why are you here? I have an agreement with your Lu family people that I can't hurt your Lu family pure-blood people." Zhong Shou frowned. Due to his bloodline, no matter where he went, everyone would link him to the Lu family. Although his name was in the Lu family direct bloodline register, he didn't like it. He especially hated the words, "Young Master Crown Prince." Shaking his head, Zhong Shou retracted his thoughts. "I want to enter the 9th layer. Are you willing to move aside?" The formless god demon didn't have a body, and this shadow demon was using the body of a puppet to talk to him. His combat strength only dropped by half a grade. Just now when they clashed, his sword technique was much better than his. Although he didn't fear this person, if he could, it was best if he didn't fight. After all, using the ability of the illusionary heart mirror to suppress the god realm shadow demon would consume lifespan. The formless god demon smiled. "Do you have a Saint Dynasty token? If you do, please take it out. I won't stop you." Zhong Shou frowned and the formless god demon understood. His expression turned dark and a cold intent flashed in his eyes. "No token, that makes things a little tough for me," the formless god demon said, and then gave out a weird smile. "You entered the 9th layer to search for Lu Hanyan? Is she your mother? However, I remember that in these 20 years, there was no one who threw her into the 9th layer. There is no girl and no one named Lu Hanyan." Zhong Shou was shocked. This formless god demon was able to peer into his thoughts. Then, his body shook. Chapter 932. Knowledge Barrier, Mother and Son Meeting but not being able to recognize each other. Saint Venerable's methods are really something that normal people can't compare to. What a surprise! The praises came from the water vapor in the sky. This was the 8th layer of Nether Jail, 30,000 feet above the ground. The two of them stood there, but there was no trace of them. Everything below could be seen in his eyes. Lu Tianqing thought to himself, not being able to know or recognize them when they meet is far crueler than not being able to let the mother and son meet. If in the future these two had a chance to break through this knowledge barrier, who knows how much pain and regret they would feel. He didn't show it on his face, instead, a joyful expression appeared on his face. "Junior hasn't congratulated Saint Venerable. It seems like your cultivation has improved greatly." "My cultivation has only improved a little. In terms of knowledge, I am far from the Buddhist faction." Lu Juyan smiled. His expression was indiscernible as he asked, "Did you do those red hummingbirds? I remember that there wasn't such a clause in the punishment." Saint Venerable Lu Tianqing's expression instantly changed as he looked towards Lu Juyan with a weird expression. All of a sudden, he didn't understand and felt a chill down his spine. During these 17 days, Lu Juyan had been here, excitedly observing everything that Zhong Shou did. The red hummingbird matter should have been noticed by this Saint Venerable. Why didn't he care before but ask now? His tone was like he was asking for someone to take responsibility. Thinking about it for a moment, Lu Tianqing replied carefully, Lu Yunj did it. Before Hanyan's matter, Yunj was her fiancé. Apart from that matter, Yunj naturally hated her to the bone. Actually, it was no wonder that he would do that. I heard that 20 years ago, Yunj loved her deeply. As they say, the deeper you love, the more you hate. It is also because of this great humiliation that Yungu was able to bravely advance in the past 20 years, and is now the second person among the Holy Hall's princes. Yunj. Juyan's brow rose up, a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. To maintain the bloodline of the sky-burning Lu family, it was normal for people of the same race to marry each other. Especially people like Lu Hanyan who couldn't marry outsiders. Usually, it was the elders who chose the elite disciples from the same clan. He had heard of Lu Yunj's name several decades ago. Who knew that this kid could actually reach such a high level? Among the dozens of crown princes of the Lu clan, he was ranked second. Not only must their cultivation base and bloodline be superior to those of the same race, he should have a considerable amount of power, and he would need at least 2 country rulers to back him up. Lu Tianqing's words were, firstly, to defend Lu Yunj, secondly, to enlighten him, and thirdly, to exonerate himself. Lu Juyan laughed and acted like he didn't hear those words. However, the warden of the death jail is still you, Lu Tianqing. He wanted to use this method to torture Hanyan, and you agreed just like that? Or this kind of scarlet hummingbird? The scarlet-bladed bird didn't eat much, but its saliva was poisonous, which could increase a person's pain 10-fold or even 100-fold. The Lu family often used the saliva of the scarlet hummingbird to torture prisoners, but it was usually diluted. Lu Tianqing was drenched in cold sweat. He could not understand what Lu Juyan meant by those words. Could it be that this Saint Venerable was actually on Lu Hanyan's side? That shouldn't be the case. If he really couldn't stand it 20 years ago, he wouldn't have helped them. Then, he didn't ask about Lu Hanyan's matter. He kept silent, thinking about it for a moment before he opened his mouth once more. I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. After this, I will head to the punishment hall to receive my punishment. In the future, such a thing won't happen again. It is good that you are willing to admit your mistake. As for punishment, there is no rush. Actually, there is no need to talk about the future. Lu Juyan shook his head, smiling as he sized up the red-robed old man beside him. You are injured? Was it done by Zhong Weiran 3 years ago? Are you in any way? Lu Tianqing was startled, green veins popping out on his arms. His face was expressionless. It is just a small injury, not worth mentioning. Thank you, Saint Venerable, for your concern. Although Zhong Weiran was forced back by him, he saw it as a huge humiliation. A middle-stage God Realm cultivator was able to injure Lu Tianqing and leave. Moreover, his injuries hadn't healed in 3 years. When Lu Juyan heard this, his smile became even brighter. That is good. I remember that there is a Kangwu Saint tree under the Lu family rule. It blooms once every 2,000 years and bears fruit once every 2,000 years. Its fruit can increase one's lifespan by 100 years. You can head to that world and bring back 10 Kangwu Saint fruit. Remember, you have to do it within 10 days, you can't delay. His tone and tone were unquestionable. Lu Tianqing was startled once more. Naturally, he knew about the name of the Kangwu Saint tree. It was the top treasure of the Lu family Saint dynasty and was even one of the foundations of the sky-burning Lu family. Every 4 years, it would only produce 72 fruits which were distributed within the family. Even a Saint Realm person like him couldn't casually get it. However, why did Lu Juyan want it? Moreover, 10 at a time? End Realm Saint Venerables could live forever. These things that could increase lifespan were meaningless to him. Just as he was hesitating and wanted to ask, he saw Lu Juyan's cold gaze staring over. He didn't dare to hesitate, replying before leaving with a suspicious heart. His brow was tightly furrowed. What happened today felt really weird. Julian's words totally confused everyone, and they could not understand what he meant. At the start, it seemed like he wanted to condemn him, but then he let him off. In the end, he ordered him to get the Kangwu Saint fruit. Was he going to give it to Lu Hanyan? 10 saint fruits could increase one's lifespan by 400 years. He then shook his head and chased such thoughts away. Saint venerables were supreme beings, but such things that could greatly increase lifespan couldn't be used as one wished. If one wanted to use it, one had to give an explanation to the people who were about to die. Lu Hanyan was already despised by the entire Lu family. Even Yenyuan's Saint Venerable who doted on her didn't do that. Much less extreme Flame Saint Venerable? As for today, based on what he knew, this Saint Venerable's temper was really unpredictable. When he was young, he did many preposterous things. His actions today weren't weird, or maybe he was just being suspicious. Even if he knew that it wasn't appropriate, he couldn't reject it. Who knew that right after he left, a red flame suddenly lit up beside Julian. First, the faint shape of a phoenix appeared. Then, a young girl wearing a luxurious red feather dress walked out of the flames. Her brow was filled with mocking intent. "Venerable Tianqing, are you really going to give up just like that? Although this person thinks too much, he has done many things for you." Scheming and scheming, thinking too much. Lu Julian was expressionless as he looked at the black mist below. It can't be considered giving up. In the past, I didn't treat him badly when he did things for me. Now that I need him to suffer some grievances, I don't think he will have any complaints. Chapter 933. He just suffered some grievances? The teen in the red shirt scoffed to show her disdain. If that was the case, then why did you need to dig a hole to bury him, using both hard and soft methods? To let him confess? Julian didn't retort and just focused on his hand. What else can we do? That kid hates our Lu family to the bone, and his rage surges into the heavens. If we don't use Lu Tianqing's head, how can we calm him down? I have stopped bothering about the Lu family matter. I am a saint venerable, but the only thing I can manage is this 9 extreme death jail. The only one I can control is Lu Tianqing. He is just unlucky. Scoff. That Lu Tianqing is still okay. As long as he has some strength, he won't be sent to the death jail. Xianhua, Xuanya, and the other country rulers might not be willing to submit. However, not everyone is dead set on advancing and retreating with them, Li Chia said. Like he didn't want to say anything more, Julian laughed. Do you feel it? Huang the blood in my body is burning and boiling at this moment. It is all because of him. Bloodline retracing, this power is so strong. This is the first time in 7,000 years that something like this has happened. It really isn't weaker than when Yenyuan stepped into End Realm. The one called Huang squinted her eyes and sensed it quietly. She had a special relationship with Julian, and they were even connected by life and death. How could she not feel such an obvious bloodline movement? From the moment the two of them looked at Zhong Shou, she had already sensed it. As time went on, Julian's bloodline movement became more and more obvious. If Julian could gain benefits, then so could she. He is indeed very strong. None of the saints of the Lu clan in the past few thousand years can match him. World-burning blood eyes also seems like it, but isn't. It seems to have merged with some other bloodlines. Marrow-burning blood spirit curse, death jail forbidden technique. I really don't know how he survived. I really look forward to when this kid becomes a saint. Her eyes flashed and she said casually, just for this bloodline power, is it worth you sacrificing a saint realm for him? Worth it? How is it not worth it? Julian laughed, but his voice shook 1,000 miles as he said calmly, to people like us, what family, what faction, what descendant, none of that matters. My only wish is to fuse the Tao and achieve the true realm. In the past, it didn't matter to me who won or lost in the internal conflicts of the clan. He allowed it to happen as if he was watching a Gu battle. Even if he colluded with outsiders, as long as it didn't harm them, Julian could sit back and watch. He was even happy to see it happen. However, since this kid gave me a chance to improve my cultivation, how could I be willing to do that? If Lu Tianqing can't see through this, then he's courting death. After saying this, Julian's expression suddenly changed. Speaking of which, this kid is also related to you. This kid has the mark of the lightning phoenix on his body, he should be. When the young girl heard this, her face immediately changed and turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Before Julian finished speaking, Xiao Chen changed the topic. From what I can see, he still has at least 10 days to awaken the world-burning blood eyes. Now it's really a dilemma. I hope he'll be faster, but I also hope he'll be slower. It'll be best if he can hold on until the 10th day. I hope so. Julian laughed. The young girl's words were exactly what he was thinking about. Pretty much every breath that passed, he could feel his bloodline power increasing by a little. It was vast and majestic, making one shiver in fear. Like a dam, the longer it lasted, the more potential it accumulated to block the flood, the stronger it would be. Once it charged down, there would be a huge wave that would drown everything. Apart from looking forward to it, he also hoped that this dam would be able to last until the end. Only in this way could more bloodline power be traced back to him. In terms of benefits, it can't compare to Yenyuan. I am really jealous. At this moment, he will probably sense it in a few days. Bloodline tracing, the stronger one's cultivation, the closer one's bloodline was, the more benefits one would obtain. From Yenyuan to Zhongshou, only 8 generations had passed. Like Julian, no matter what, he couldn't catch up. Luckily, he had the initiative. If he succeeds in the world-burning blood eyes, who knows what kind of commotion it will cause. This 9 extreme death jail. As she said this, the young girl frowned and looked below at the black mist. The intense battle there was about to end. Illusionary heart mirror, 9-tailed sky fox? How did it end up in his hands? Why didn't he tell me? She couldn't let this kid enter the 9th layer. Julian was startled. It was obvious that he didn't expect it. Then, he smiled without caring. It is okay. Just like what I wanted. With a flick of his finger, a drop of blood shot out and flew towards the abyss gate. In midair, another Julian appeared. At this moment, within the black mist, Zhongshou was shocked. During these 20 years, there was no woman who was sent to the 9th layer, and no one called Lu Hanyan. 20 years, no Lu Hanyan. Then, where was his mother? Was what the formless god-demon said true or false? Could it be that the person was still in Nether prison, and he just couldn't find him? However, why was it that he spent dozens of days and still couldn't find her? Where did he miss out on? All these questions flashed in his mind. Zhongshou was unable to rein in his thoughts. His thoughts were becoming more and more chaotic. Millions of thoughts rose up at the same time. It was like he was being controlled by a certain power. At this moment, the white shirt male smiled gently. Another sword slashed over. It was really ordinary, but it was as quick as starlight. Zhongshou could only look on with his eyes wide open, standing on the spot. Although he had the ability to dodge and block, he was unable to occupy the main position in his mind. Seeing the sword energy reach his brow and was about to pierce through his head. Suddenly, a green mirror light shone out from the illusionary heart mirror behind him. As the light shone down, it completely enveloped the body of the white-robed man. The spiritual sense in the mirror also returned to his soul ocean. It brought with it an ice-cold power which caused all the random thoughts in his mind to be instantly calmed down. The formless god-demon on the other side let out a miserable cry. Before the sword reached Zhongshou's body, it retreated and fled. Zhong Shou's expression didn't change. The Imperial Dao Dragon Tooth sword formation that was ready to be used instantly covered 40 miles of space. The nameless sword in his hand instantly struck back. Instantly, several longing dragons circled above. 5 dragons merged into one. The absolute beginning dragon opened its giant mouth and reached forwards like it wanted to swallow up this white shirt teen. At this moment, the formless god demon was unable to block at all. Its sword technique was better than Zhong Shou's, but the sword light that it slashed out collapsed on contact. Zhong Shou mercilessly broke through layer by layer and smashed it into pieces. Its face twisted in pain, and it was finding it harder and harder to hold on. Even the shadow puppets around were destroyed by Zhong Shou's sword formation. Chapter 934. The sword energy struck out, however. The strength of the white shirt man's sword was less than 30% of what it was at the start. The martial path sword intent that it contained was also reduced to an extreme. It was no different from normal celestial realm expert. He was obviously at peak god realm, but the strength he displayed was only similar to normal god realm expert. His aura was like that of a tiger pouncing on its prey. The nameless sword slashed once, and then thrice, breaking the heavy sword veil. Maybe because he knew that the situation wasn't good, he couldn't block it. The formless god demon didn't dare to stay in the body of the shadow puppet. Under the green light, a green smoke rose up and the shadow entered the black mist. At the same time, it gave out a sharp, furious roar. Despicable! The moment he said those words, the crazy blood-red sword light sliced the white shirt shadow puppet into meat and blood. Zhong Shou didn't care. His spiritual sense locked onto the main body of the formless god demon. He hid the main body of the soul within the illusionary heart mirror. Within his body was an illusory soul. He used this as bait to set up this trap to lure the formless god demon into it. Only then did he exchange for the illusionary heart mirror to be able to directly shine on the formless god demon. At this moment, how could he allow the shadow demon to escape in front of him? If they continued fighting, although he still had a chance of winning. However, even if he used the illusionary heart mirror for a breath, he would lose a month of lifespan. Naturally, he had to end the battle quickly. While his flesh and blood exploded, 9,000-foot giant silver tails rose up from Zhong Shou's back, 7 real and 2 illusionary. A golden-purple mark appeared at the center of his brows. It vaguely resembled fire and thunder, but upon closer inspection, it also resembled illusion and water. The 4 different marks seemed to have merged into one. The 60,000-foot lightning wings spread out, black flames spread and burned for 100 miles. Along with the Sky Fox bloodline, all the illusionary power of the black mist was unable to affect his mind. However, all the changes and illusions of the formless god demon were within his spiritual sense. Under the green light of the illusionary heart mirror, all the true scenes appeared. He slashed out, 3,000 star falling. At this moment, Zhong Shou had only condensed 79 star Dao seeds. However, when this sword fell, it was as if the stars in the sky were falling from the sky. In 1,000th of a second, a soft pop sound was heard from the edge of the sword. When the sword light slashed into the shadow demon's soul body, sword intent immediately erupted. The soul realm slaughter sword intent, the Aeon sword intent, and at least 3 long ing swords merged into one. It split into thousands of streaks and charged about within the soul body. The formless god demon screamed once more. However, he decisively took the initiative to split that formless body into millions of pieces. He forcefully resisted Zhong Shou's 1,000-blaze lightning flash and fled frantically in the black flames that filled the sky. Zhong Shou laughed coldly. Trying to escape? How could it be that easy? The formless god-demon had no interest in invading his mind. It was difficult to investigate and impossible to guard against, and most of them would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Since they were enemies today, then they shouldn't leave any future problems. Just as he was about to attack once more, the intense pain in his eyes suddenly increased. Like an explosion, it tugged at his mind and soul ocean, causing Zhong Shou to bend over in pain. Pain, however, he was even more determined. It was as if he wanted to vent all the pain and bitterness in his heart. He formed a seal with his hands and chanted out, Wan, Dao, Rule, Ritual, Xian, Law, Space. Song Xingdao spat out the 7-word true words, and the millions of soul fragments of the formless god-demon were frozen in the air, unable to move at all. Under the burning of the 1,000-blaze lightning flash, they swiftly shrank. At this moment, Zhong Shou was in intense pain and didn't have much strength left. He waved his sleeves and released Hanshi along with the dozens of Saint Fire silver ants. The former knew what Zhong Shou was thinking, its body flashing like a streak of light or using fire movement techniques, directly using Zhong Shou's black flames to jump around. Along with the 10 extreme Imperial Dao Destruction Sword formation, in just an instant, the soul fragments of the formless god-demon were all shattered. At this moment, Zhong Shou finally recovered from the intense pain. The illusionary heart mirror still locked onto the main body of the formless god-demon. The soul body that was hundreds of times weaker was still intensely struggling. Without any thoughts of showing mercy, Zhong Shou slashed down with a sword. It was still 3,000 stars, the starlight falling down and the sword's shadow shining brightly. After an eye-catching flame light passed, the spiritual sense that Zhong Shou spread out was unable to sense the aura of the formless god-demon. It was totally clean, there was nothing left at all. At this moment, the black fog that filled the area seemed to have faded by quite a bit. Zhong Shou shone the illusionary heart mirror around and searched inch by inch. After confirming that the soul of the formless god-demon had dissipated and was totally wiped out, he hurriedly retracted the green light with a thought. The illusionary heart mirror consumed lifespan, but it was okay to use some basic abilities. At this moment, Zhong Shou was only using the mirror as a replacement for his eyes. The 9 tails behind him were all retracted. The mark at the center of his brows also disappeared. Even the star Dharma was retracted. Chapter 935. It's Little Gold? Zhong Shou was stunned. Why did Little Gold swallow that thing? Wanxiang swallowing formless? One was good at shapeshifting, able to transform into any god-beast and expert. The other was good at illusionary techniques, attacking one's soul without a trace, and was tough to defend against. Wait. A bright light flashed in Zhong Shou's eyes. This little fellow's ambition was not small at all. However, to reach that level, it had to swallow more and higher-level formless god-demons. Little Gold swallowed the transparent crystal and then retracted its body, not making any more movements. Zhong Shou shook his head and didn't bother anymore, stepping towards the space abyss gate. One space flash and he was 10 miles away. However, at this moment, an unbelievably majestic soul remembrance pressure suddenly rippled outwards from the abyss gate, sweeping through the void. Zhong Shou first felt his soul ocean explode and shake, feeling really uncomfortable. Then, the spiritual sense gathered once more. It gathered into one and pressed down. It was like a giant, extremely heavy and sturdy giant wheel smashing into a calm lake. It caused waves to fill the sky, smashing everything that dared to resist into pieces. Blood seeped out from the corner of Zhong Shou's lips, his spiritual sense collapsing. He resisted bit by bit until it reached the core of his soul. The Dharma true image in his soul ocean suddenly opened its eyes. There was a Tao word at the center of its brow. Within its eyes were 2 whirlpools. Water and fire, yin and yang, life and death, cause and effect, fate, universe. They corresponded with one another and complemented one another. The black and white holes in its hands rose into the air and hung behind its back. The Dharma true image reached out with its hand. It actually used pure soul power to form a 4-foot blood sword similar to the nameless sword. The 9-layer golden pagoda landed from above and landed in its left hand. When the giant wheel charged over, it slashed out with a sword. With a loud explosion, Zhong-Shou felt his soul explode into numerous pieces. Blood seeped out from his 7 orifices, looking really tragic. In an instant, even the pain in his eyes and the forbidden technique were suppressed. Luckily, the soul core was able to withstand the impact and didn't shatter. Apart from the shock waves, which made him feel a little uncomfortable, there were no other major problems. Just as Zhong-Shou was racking his brains over how to deal with the aftermath, the 9-story golden pagoda in the palm of the Dharma true form spontaneously released a myriad of golden rays of light. It caused the void in his heart and soul sea space to instantly return to calmness. As the golden light shone on him, the cracks in his soul started to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. What kind of treasure is this? Zhong-Shou was slightly taken aback. He had not used the golden pagoda at all. Only now did he realize that Senior Marshal Brother Wei Su really valued him greatly back then. The value of the gift for becoming a disciple was far beyond his imagination. Looking at the level of this pagoda, it was probably not below the illusory heart mirror. It was far from just suppressing the aura of the King Tao. It seemed to be a clone of a supreme treasure. All of a sudden, he didn't have time to think about it. Right away, Zhong-Shou looked forwards. In the end, he saw a purple-robed teen standing within the abyss gate. He stood with his arms behind his back, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He was like a god looking down on the common people. Julian. Zhong-Shou was instantly enlightened. The person in front of him wasn't Julian's main body, but a part of his soul. However, the feeling that the aura gave him was... it was still like a bottomless abyss. No, it was more like a black hole or a white hole. He only felt that only these 2 words could describe the things he had seen. He had seen many End-Realm experts, such as Long Ying and Lin Xuanshuang. However, the 2 of them would try their best to retract their aura. Unlike this person who didn't bother to hide it at all, he was overbearing and sharp. "This is my essence blood incarnation." Julian's eyes flashed as he sized up Zhong-Shou. "To be able to block my spiritual sense strike and prevent your soul from collapsing, not bad. Although it is less than 1% at your age and at the same realm, you are the only one." Zhong-Shou's heart sank to the bottom of the abyss. It felt ice cold. He could only hold onto the nameless sword with his right hand, green veins popping out. Even in front of an End-Realm expert, he wouldn't lose the courage to pull out his sword. However, what was the use of that? Although the person in front of him was just a drop of Julian's essence blood incarnation. However, it was enough to make him feel despair. That formless god-demon was like a star compared to the moon. Even if it was a saint realm, he would dare to go all out and even dare to pull out his sword to slash him. However, the person in front of him made him feel like he couldn't even breathe and was forcefully holding his breath. He wanted him to give up? Impossible. However, could he only look on as this person blocked in front of the abyss gate? Or wait for Lin Xuanshuang to help him? He mocked himself in his heart. Thinking about such things now was just too much. Although he wasn't willing to admit it, the person didn't show any killing intent. However, his life was in the hands of this End-Realm Saint Venerable with just a thought. This kind of feeling really made one feel extremely uncomfortable. Julian didn't care about the change in his mood at all. He said expressionlessly, "You are a junior of my Lu family. For you to have such strength, you are 1 in a million. I am happy to see that. Today I will give you a chance." Within 10 days, if you are able to enter the Abyss Gate with your own strength, I will spare your life. I can exempt your mother from her remaining punishment. Zhong-Shou frowned. He didn't feel any joy at all. He just had to walk to the Abyss Gate. It sounded simple. However, Julian definitely had more to say. He definitely wouldn't let him get what he wanted so easily. Naturally, I will try my best to stop you. As Julian said this, he waved his sleeves. Instantly, red flames burned, causing the 300,000-foot area to become like a furnace. All the black mist collapsed right away. It is only limited to the strength of this clone. His gaze was filled with excitement and also a bit of provocation and disdain. Who knows whether or not it was an illusion, but for some reason, Zhong-Shou felt like this person was looking at his tightly shut eyes most of the time. His gaze was curious, like he was anticipating something. Zhong-Shou thought about it seriously before stepping forward. He didn't say a single word. He knew that he had no choice at all. He had to try before he was willing. Long before he entered the death jail, he was already prepared to die. Then, at this moment, why did he need to cherish his life? He stepped out 3 steps and walked into the red flames. Zhong-Shou's brow appeared once more. The 70,000-foot lightning wings spread out and a black lotus-like flame appeared beneath his feet. It protected Zhong-Shou so that his body didn't dissipate in the sky-burning flame. After 3,000 feet, another 9 silver tails appeared. There were also some fine blue scales all over his body. This was the bloodline of the water Qilin, automatically protecting his body. In just 3,000 feet, the sky-burning flame forced Zhong-Shou to use all his bloodline powers. Chapter 936. Outside of his body, the flame power boiled as he used the lightning blaze 1000 flash to go up against the pure sky-burning flame. Within Zhong-Shou's soul ocean, huge waves rose up. Xiao Chen's chaotic soul consciousness continued to lose control, rippling outwards. That giant soul wheel descended once more. It directly broke through the outer layer of his soul ocean and headed right for his source. Zhong-Shou's Dharma true image raised his sword once more to go up against the giant wheel. However, it was really tough and his true image body exploded, causing some of his soul sense to break away. Luckily, with the source life spirit breathing technique that Lin Xuanxuang taught him, he was able to instantly recover. Although he had to suffer the pain of his soul sense collapsing, it also caused the structure of his soul body to become more perfect to block this giant wheel. At this moment, Zhong-Shou knew that this giant wheel was definitely the manifestation of Julian's Dharma. Who knows what kind of Tao it was to have such vast strength. Even if it was just 1%, it forced him to defend and not attack. It caused the monster incarnation to gather up all his bloodline power. Zhong-Shou wasn't afraid of the red flames anymore. After the black flames of the lightning blaze 1000 flash was the water force ability of the water Qilin. It caused Zhong-Shou to be perfectly fine as he walked in the flames. Every step he took was really careful. However, he didn't face any problems as he walked 20,000 feet forward. When he was just 1,000 feet away from the Abyss Gate, Zhong-Shou raised his head and looked at Julian with a confused expression. Wasn't this Saint Venerable going to stop him? However, the sky-burning flame and soul sense suppression probably wouldn't be able to stop him. He saw that this person's eyes seemed to be closed. His expression was really calm and indiscernible. Zhong-Shou frowned and still didn't hesitate to take another step forward. Each step was 10 feet and he was just 99 feet away from the Abyss Gate. Although this step was really easy, it was still the same as before. However, it was like he had stepped into another world. True power, that vast and boundless true power aura covered the entire area. Along with the soul power suppression from the spiritual sense, Zhong-Shou's body stumbled and he nearly knelt down. In his sea of consciousness, He finally knew what great Tao that giant wheel was. Wheel. The wheel of reincarnation was also the wheel of reincarnation of all living things. One could clearly see that there were several tens of forbidden talismans engraved on the wheel. Life and death, fate, the 5 elements, yin and yang. Corresponding to each other, there were a total of 12 types of endless reincarnation laws. Zhong Shouxin was shocked. This was Julian's Tao? It was no wonder that he felt like he couldn't exert any force. No matter how much force he used to counterattack, it was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing without a trace. With the word Tao, he had fused hundreds of laws. In the end, he wanted to merge the 3,000 great Taos into one. However, Julian was different. He felt that everything in the world had an endless cycle of reincarnation. Such was life and death. Such was fate. This was karma. It was the same for the beginning and end. At this moment, Zhong Shou's spiritual sense true image was trying his best to resist. He was trying his best to chase this wheel out of his spiritual sense void. However, no matter how much strength he used, he was brought away by the giant wheel. Reincarnation spun, the source returned to the end and then back to the source. Cold sweat covered his forehead. Zhong Shou took another step out and he felt like he couldn't continue anymore. His bones cracked and he couldn't take the burden. No matter how much strength he used, in the end, it all returned to his body. Julian was laughing like he was mocking him for overestimating himself. Zhong Shou's fists couldn't help but clench tightly once more. His chest was filled with rage and hatred. He hated that he was useless, but he was angry at Julian's disdain. It ended just like that? Impossible. The vengeful energy in his chest, the rage that was slowly increasing swiftly boiled and surged. The pain in his eyes was already bone-deep. The power of the forbidden technique was also eating away at his soul. However, it couldn't shake his heart at all. His fighting spirit grew stronger. He had to walk over. There was a loud explosion behind him, and a giant nether gate appeared. Large amounts of death energy crazily surged in. Zhong Shou used his spiritual sense to forcefully gather it on the sword. He finally tore open a gap in this sticky space, causing Zhong Shou to delightfully walk forwards once more. Jian frowned. Death Gate? To think that your nether death Tao has reached such a level as well. However, to use it like that, you don't care about your life? Zhong Shou kept silent. At this moment, no matter what kind of power it was, as long as it could help him walk into the Abyss Gate, he wouldn't mind even if he became a demon. Moreover, he was using up some lifespan in this death realm. The netherworld energy lingered around his body, but it grew and multiplied endlessly inside his body. A pair of wings formed outside of Zhong Shou's body, gray and white in color. Within his spiritual sense, although the giant wheel could cause the death and life energy to cycle within, it was still too weak. However, as the death and life energy was too huge, just this spinning process caused the rotation of the wheel to slow down. Zhong Shou's thoughts were really simple. Since you could reincarnate whatever spell, whatever Tao you had, then why didn't you think about it? Then, the only way was to make the wheel unable to take the burden. Julian didn't care, focusing on Zhong Shou. In just a moment, his eyes shone with a weird glow and he was enlightened. Evil can't invade, demons can't add to it. So, it is the Saint King body. No wonder you are so fearless. As he said that, he gave out a weird laugh. Who knew that a Saint King would appear after my sky-burning Liu family? His tone was filled with self-mocking intent. The emotions in his tone were really complicated. Zhong Shou didn't bother, taking 10 steps forward before he was stopped by the steel wall-like barrier. Zhong Shou bit the tip of his tongue to wake himself up from the intense pain. Then, a lotus platform appeared beneath his feet. It wasn't the flame lotus formed by the lightning blaze thousand flash. Instead, it was formed by the wish power, a true lotus. The moment the lotus platform formed, a 7-colored treasure light appeared around Zhong Shou's body. Buddhist power surged. At this moment, he didn't care about anything, he didn't care about the consequences. He only knew that he had to walk forwards and take the last dozens of steps. Lotus platform? How did this kid have anything to do with the Buddhist faction? This scene is actually the Buddha fruit tree. This time the one who spoke was the red shirt teen. A red flame flashed and she appeared beside Julian. He looked at the delicate and pretty young man who was hundreds of feet away and had completely lost his mind under the pain. Julian was also stunned as he looked at the 2 black and white dots behind Zhong Shou. Although it hadn't fully appeared, it already had the power to make one's heart race. A moment later, only when Zhong Shou was within 10 steps did Julian come back to his senses. So it turns out that you and I have underestimated him. Buddhist faction unlimited beginning and end. Sighing, Julian reached out his hand and tapped the brow of the teen. He could see that Zhong Shou was already at the end of his rope. His skin tore open and blood dyed his clothes. There were several parts of the bones in his body that were unnaturally twisted. This was his physical body that couldn't take it anymore. In fact, he couldn't take the black flames, the life and death energy, the water Qilin's protective ripples. At this moment, Zhong Shou's body was flowing in reverse. With the forbidden technique on his body, he was also carrying dozens of strong abilities. Initial celestial realm, the strength that he displayed exceeded normal initial god realm. The first to pay the price was his physical body. At this moment, the Dharma that he was about to manifest was the last straw that broke the camel's back. What made Julian frown was the death gate. Vengeful spirits gathered and cried out. This open death gate had already turned this 10,000 feet nether jail space into a true nether death land. One could also sense the dozens of nether death worlds around. Numerous strong intents were injected over. Even if one knew that there was an end realm aura suppressing here, one couldn't block it. Chapter 937. In his dizziness, he only felt a cool and refreshing feeling spread through his limbs and bones. His tired body slowly recovered. The true essence in his chakra meridians was reborn and filled with life. Zhong Shou's consciousness was slowly pulled out from the darkness where he had no thoughts. Thinking to himself, wasn't he already dead? How could he still feel his physical body? The bones that had clearly been broken had also recovered and seemed to have become stronger. His skin felt a piercing pain like needles, stabbing into his meridians to help him adjust his energy meridians and remove the clotted blood. He also felt 2 ice-cold hands using a unique technique to massage his vital acupoints from time to time. The control of strength was just right, actually controlling the energy meridians in his body to flow and sort out his meridians. Although the hands were cold, he felt really warm and really attached to them. This aura was really familiar. He even had an urge to curl up in the embrace of those hands. "Mother," he couldn't help but mutter. Zhong Shoxin was startled. That hand also paused for a moment, following which, there was a light chuckle as it continued to use that unique method to help him recover. Zhong Shou only felt his face burning up. However, he forcefully controlled the blood to not surge towards his face. He thought to himself that this time he really didn't have the face to meet anyone. He really wanted to dig a hole and bury himself. At this moment, he could only pretend that he was still in deep sleep. What he said just now was just sleep talking. It really was sleep talking. It was definitely because he cared too much about his mother who was still suffering in the death jail. He spread out his spiritual sense and noticed that he was outside the black mist, beside the demon tree. His head was resting on the legs of the woman. Those so-called needles were her hair. Although she was bound by the vines, the woman still tried her best to free her hands to help him recover. A moment later, she seemed to have used up all her strength. She panted slightly. "Little brother, have you woken up? Pretending to be asleep isn't a good habit. I haven't learned the Liu family's adversity crossing pulse leading technique. If you want to fully recover, you need to rely on yourself to adjust your breathing." Zhong Shou couldn't pretend anymore. He could only open his eyes and straighten his body. His eyes were still filled with pain, but he couldn't see anything. As such, he immediately took out the illusionary heart mirror. Observing his surroundings, he found that it was indeed the woman who made him feel unusually close and amiable. He faced the city wall, as if he didn't feel embarrassed at all after being exposed. His eyes were filled with confusion as he directly asked, "Senior, may I know how many days have passed since I fainted? Was it Senior who saved my life?" How to use to merge all the different aspects. In the end, he didn't have a complete spirit master legacy. In the past, Zhong Shou's management of his soul ocean was really rough, allowing it to do whatever he wanted. It was okay if he faced normal cultivators, but if he faced someone like Juyan, numerous weaknesses would appear. Fate, cause and effect, life and death, yin and yang, universe, swallow and spit, they are all Tao's. They are all between end and beginning, and can be merged into a Tao word. That is not bad, but I still need to think about the details and improve the structure. Anyways, he needed to use the power of the Tao to the greatest extent. The moment such a thought rose up, Zhong Shou could feel that there were some changes in his soul ocean void. Next would be those star Tao seeds. The more stars he added in, the stars in the void of his heart were more and more similar to the starry sky of the various worlds. Since that was the case, then he would let these stars evolve on their own. Why not let himself imitate them? One must know that there was a reason for such a phenomenon. There had to be a reason for the starry sky to reflect the various worlds. In this realm, there were also countless grand magics and secret magics that had been created by referring to the stars. His 3,000 star falling came from the Taoist faction's cycle of heaven's star falling technique. However, to complete all of this wasn't something that could be done in a day. The workload was huge. Even if he used the power of the Book of Ian, he might not be able to complete it in 3 to 5 months. However, at this moment, even a bit more strength was good. As long as he roughly completed the initial steps, it would increase Zhong Shou's chances of winning. Closing his eyes and meditating, Zhong Shou once again forgot about the time. Although the pain in his eyes was still unbearable, sitting beside this woman, Zhong Shou felt really peaceful. He actually didn't care about the pain in his eyes. For some reason, when Zhong Shou started to try to merge the 4 strong bloodlines with his true image, Zhong Shou's eyes lit up. The pain in his eyes was instantly reduced by more than half. As expected, the changes in my eyes have something to do with the bloodline power. The merging process was surprisingly simple. It was like he had gone through tens of thousands of attempts before, pretty much succeeding naturally. Zhong Shou's goal was to seek common ground while reserving differences. First seek common ground and merge them into one. As for the differences and conflicts in the bloodline, he would first keep them and not bother about them. He couldn't be greedy. Zhong Shou was planning to get rid of this part when he had time. Things that weren't beneficial to him, things that were messy and useless, he would decisively wash them away to retain the essence. Who knows how long passed before Zhong Shou woke up once more. He suddenly pointed out with a finger. It was really simple and ordinary. The space in front of him didn't change at all. Only Zhong Shou could sense the terrifying power gathered at the tip of his finger. If he didn't stop in time, everything within hundreds of miles would be wiped out. This was one of the 9 returning to one of the great evolution. This was the only way Zhong Shou could think of to go up against the wheel. His brows rising, Samuraim's eyes were filled with anticipation. He felt a focused gaze, as gentle as water, staring at him. Beside him, there was only the woman under the tree. Zhong Shou couldn't help but look over with a lost expression. Is there something wrong with my body? How is that possible? Lu Hanyan might have felt a little embarrassed, her face turning red. Then she said with a sad expression, I am just sad because of the scene. Thinking about my kid. If he wasn't sick or injured, he should be over 20 years old. He should be a little older than you. Zhong Shou was shocked. He maintained his youth too early. His current appearance was still that of a 16-year-old. Following which Lu Hanyan said, Who knows if he will acknowledge me as his mother when he goes out? What about now? If he is half as skilled as you, I will be satisfied. No, it is best if he doesn't cultivate. The Lu family won't let him off, they just hope that he will be safe. Oh, it is still not right. If he doesn't cultivate, how can he live forever? Zhong Shou only felt his eyes tearing up, his heart aching for some reason. He looked at the time and flew up like he was escaping, once again smashing into the black mist. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.